Hello, hello. There we go. It looks like that's working. A very good evening to you all, and a very warm welcome to another live stream with me, 320 Sim Pilot. Today, taking a Frontier A321 CEO. We're taking in the old IAE engines for a flight from here in Orlando over to Houston, Texas. So a bit more of our USA flying. We've got a lovely new livery by Wired Womble to enjoy, featuring the first officer herself all over the aircraft. So yeah, very nice indeed. So thank you to Wired Womble, first of all, for putting this livery together. It's been a long time since we've flown the ToLiss A321. We've done their 340 a few flights ago, but yeah, it's been a while, so definitely time to jump back in. Apologies for a little bit late. I've been having an argument with VATSIM and X-Pilot more specifically. So we won't be on VATSIM today, I'm afraid. I would normally have that set up. My client that I use has stopped working. I didn't realise this until a bit too close to the stream. This is the problem with streaming not frequently enough. And the version 2 that I downloaded was also giving me a headache. So I have not been able to get that set up properly. So we'll try that later on. Right. Let's just check everybody is getting signal. So we've got Pilot. Thanks for joining us from Holland over in Twitch. Also good to see you as the Crazy Kev. There's Safe Flight. Thanks very much, Kev. Good to see you all here. We are indeed on XP11 today. Lauren V saying that they only have CFM and Leaps. Maybe they're merging, possibly they're merging with Spirit, who have IE and Pratt & Whitney. There we go. Maybe this is a glimpse into the future. Who knows? So yeah, that's the one I went for. Wired Womble included all the engines, so I like the IE. I think this is actually probably one of my favourite looking Airbuses, including out of the NEOs. I think the 321 with the IE is a quite well proportioned aeroplane. But there we go. So it's been a while. Thank you all for coming along. Also, I'm going to jump into YouTube chat, of course, and hello to Richard V, Victor Tango. Thanks for coming to moderate. Martin Scov, good to have you here. Vuti2, Ralph, Chickpoint. I hope you're all doing very well indeed. And yeah, it's great to see you all here. Crash Ed, good to see you. Kyle, I hope you're doing very well. Yaroslav says hello to you. Luke Paul, good to see you. Luke says, what do you prefer, 320 NX or this plane that you're flying now? So 320 NX being the fly-by-wire A320 NEO, totally different. It's a different simulator, different machine. Both excellent at this point. This has more systems though. This is a complete add-on, as it were. Whereas the 320 NX still missing some big features, still being worked on very hard by the team. Right. Let's see. Okay, Wild Womble says hello at work, so listening in. Good to see you, Wild Womble. Thanks for making this livery. So FMA's having trouble with X-Pilot not recognising the password. Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know why the old client had to stop working. I know they've released version 2 of their new one, or version 2 of beta, sorry, is on the way, or already out, but that's annoyingly putting up the full VATSIM text and leaving a box on the screen, which I dislike, especially for streaming, obviously. So I want to get rid of that, but it's not letting me. So anyway, instead of sitting here whinging, I am a pilot, you see, so of course, inherently, any change is cause for me to whinge and complain. That is just an established fact of pilots. You name it and we'll whinge about it. If you change the I don't know, the colour of the water bottle that's provided on the airplane, there'll be complaints. If you change the app that it runs on, or if you change one tiny part of the livery, you can guarantee the pilots won't like it. So it's just in the nature of it. Let's see if I can find my checklist, because I need to make sure I've got that in the right folder. Stand by, everybody. This is just a typical start on this channel. I wish I could say it wasn't, but it basically is now. Me sort of fiddling around updating things. Just comes from not streaming enough, so I do apologise. It's been a little while, but it's good to be back. Going to have a very casual flight today. We are just taking this airplane, just like the old days. We're going to do about a 2-hour flight once we get underway. Won't take us long to get underway. There certainly won't be any traffic as we aren't on VATSIM, so we're going to head over. I wonder if I should enable X-Plane's built-in traffic? Is that even worth it? Would that even work? I haven't seen it for a long time. Probably not going to do that. So yeah, we are basically where we parked up in Orlando after the last flight, which was in the Dash 8, which we flew to Orlando. Yeah, it's been a little while since we've been in the 321. Lucy2 says, I filed the same flight plan into the new VATSIM software 3 times last night. No joy, logged out, back in, very slow to load, but eventually it worked. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you can't file in the client now. You have to log into the website. And yeah, but yeah, thank you, Charlie Evan, for the 100. I do apologise. I don't recognise the insignia, but thank you very much for the donation. Really appreciate it. Hope you're doing very well. And thanks for the subscription. And I need to also thank 4 Prawns, who very kindly gave a £40 tip. So really appreciate that. Very kind of you, which was done out of stream. So yeah, so hopefully you don't mind me saying that out loud. Any repeats? Yes. So thank you very much, Charlie Evan. Really appreciate it. I hope you're doing very well. I will answer questions. We've got 2 hours today. Plenty of time to talk and chat. So that's why I wanted to do this. I like doing this after a bit of a break, so we can actually get some questions answered. So do please save any questions from once we're underway. I know that's a bit tricky because they come up as we go through, but there we go. So those of you who don't know, Frontier, obviously an American airline, they fly with aircraft with their animals on the tail, different animals. Usually, I think they're usually animals that live in the United States, wildlife. But Wired Womble's recreated this livery using our first officer, who you will have seen on the Discord, which I think is where this picture's from, or maybe this was when I got my computer built last year. Not last year, the year before. Almost 2 years old now. But yeah, anyway, yeah. So I think this is a picture. I think this is cut from her sitting on top of my computer, looking up at me, getting fur in it straight away as soon as it was made. But there you go. What can you do about that? So yeah, very cute. So that is our first officer. Hence, on the front it says 320 Sim Pilot and the first officer. So a heavily customized Frontier livery, certainly. Okay, let us jump into the flight deck. Hopefully we've got everything working as we want. I just need to bring up the correct chart. We're going from Orlando to Houston. Good stuff. Okay, yeah, I haven't done anything to the airplane, of course, so it would be the usual sort of flow taken from the... We actually read it. For those of you who don't know, this initial thing I do, which is, it's called preliminary cockpit preparation. So we have several checklists, and there's preliminary cockpit prep, then there's just the normal sort of cockpit prep. So preliminary, most airlines will do by reading it from the actual checklist, not the small checklist, not which usually starts at the before start checklist. It runs it from the QRH, which we have. Most airlines still have a paper QRH. It's sitting down here, and so you'll read it from the normal procedures part of that. But anyway, what we're going to do is roughly do it from memory. But it mainly involves some critical things before powering on the airplane. Now, this is a powered on airplane, but this would be a typical cold and dark state, something like that. So what you do is you're going to check that the engine mode selector is in normal, because if it was left, for example, what if the airplane was left like that? You don't want to accidentally turn on the airplane and then start up the APU and find an engine tries to start, something like that. And it sounds silly, but I have, not on the Airbus, but on previous airline, on the Dash 8, found that the thrust levers weren't at idle, things like that. Although we check that in the Airbus before engines start anyway, because if you do start these engines and these are in the wrong place like that, they'll just rev up, and that's incredibly dangerous to the ground crew who are nearby, obviously. So anyway, engine mode selector to norm, engine master switches are off. You want things like the radar switched off and the landing gear lever down. Wiper selectors off, because once we apply power we don't want them to move or they'll scratch the windscreen. Batteries voltage check, and then we can turn them on. Auto external power can just clunk on, and then we're going to check there are some system checks we'll do, but flap lever up, we need to check that matches on the screen, which we can't do yet. We should do an APU fire test. We can check accumulator is good, and we have brake pressure. Parking brake handle is on. Alternate gear is stowed. Yeah, but it's funny, it's just written down. We have to do it from the book. So yeah, there we go. Right, yeah, we are indeed in XP11 today. We are going to George Bush International, KIAH. Hopefully Cloudbot. Oh no, I can see why it's not running. Let me just turn that on. It's on the way for you shortly. Chippoint says only leave the radar on in winters to keep the ground crew nice and warm. Indeed. Of course, radar's always off on the ground, except we turn it on usually on the taxi out. The Airbus one is the only one I know that if you just turn the switch, it just turns on straight away. Most aircraft don't do that. Interestingly, the predictive wind shear can't be left in auto either. It won't run until the engines are on, but once one engine starts, that will turn the radar on, because predictive wind shear uses the radar systems in the aircraft. So we'll leave both of those need to be off. Thanks for the subscription to British Airways 747. Thank you very much, Luca Paul. That's very kind of you. I'm having some trouble with my chat here as well. Carl says we do have cats in the US as well. Yes, good point. Wolf Film says, hi, how is your night going? Hope you're doing well. Yeah, thank you very much, Wolves. Hopes and prayers for the Ukraine. Indeed. Indeed. Right. Okay. Typing Squirrel asks, if you lost both engines just after V1, would you abort the takeoff? Yeah, if you've lost both engines at V1, in incredibly unusual events, but you'll do whatever you can do to safely get the airplane somewhere. Yeah, that's what you can do, really. That's not a certified scenario, as it were. There's no performance for that. That is just a catastrophic failure. And I don't know if there's a record of it happening at V1, as it were. Obviously, we all know the Captain's Sullenberger incident. Right. Let's see if I can get the multi-stream chat to work. Good. Right, so we have to wait a second there. That's quite normal for the screens to come to life, but there we go. So flaps are at 0, lever is at 0, so they match. And we can check the engine oils. Pretty high, but reasonable. Hydraulic systems, all we're checking here is for fluid, which we've got, and oxygen, which we have. Usually it needs about 1,000 psi. It can go below that, but if it's down like 700, you might need to top up. Very rare. Engineers, very good. They check that as part of the daily check, I believe. Okay, so that's good. We can also run our AP fire test. All fine. We're going to leave that off for now. Then we can go into our actual cockpit prep. Now this is just a flow, so we would make sure the oxygen's on, ground control. Does that work? No. CVR tests. Align the IRSs. Emergency lights to arm. We've got auto on the no smoking. Seatbelts off for now. We haven't fueled up yet. Strobes to auto. Nav lights, system 1 or 2. I know some airlines will swap it over to whoever's flying or what random days of the month and so on, but there you go. Thanks for the follow, Imp. Good, we can leave this on. Landing elevation is in auto. Basically all lights out as per normal. Nothing to do really. Batteries, we would go and check the electrics, but it's a bit of a nuisance doing all this, but we can do. So you turn it off, it will say off, then you turn it on, and we just need to make sure that the voltage goes below 60 amps within. There is a time frame, a few seconds basically, i.e. all you're checking here is that it's not heavily charging, because that would show you a sign of a discharging battery or a faulty battery, or a just a battery that's already been discharged. So there we go, and check there, and 7 amps absolutely fine. Because of course 60 amps very high, risk of heating it up a lot as well, so you want to get that charge done before you oh, that doesn't work. Yeah, get that charging done before you're out at the runway. Do I play other sims off stream? Says Critic. So something I on my computer, do I play other sims? I do some. Well, last year I did a lot of the, it's not a simulator, I did the Formula 1. But I play an old Formula 1 game. I haven't bought the newest one. Oh. Yeah, and let's turn on radio management panel 3. But no, not particularly. I do like simulators, and I used to play Kerbal Space Program and so on. But a bit of Planet Coaster, a bit of Mud Runner, these sorts of games, quite commonly things that I end up dabbling with. No other serious racing games. Good. Right, so coming down here then, we've got this. We need to set the QNH, but we'll get that shortly. Landing gear is down, obviously. The clocks are all off, and the anti-skid nozzle steering is on. Then we'll head over to here. So we turned on these radio panels. So we've got the radio management panel here, and we've got the audio control panel here. Normally you turn on the interphone. So this isn't quite accurate. So there's a channel here called INT. and you'd have to turn that on, otherwise we wouldn't be able to hear each other. But once that's on, you're listening to the interphone channel, which is between the pilots. To talk to the cabin, you listen to that one. Joining us, and I hope you're doing very well. I really appreciate it. How's it going on Twitch? Nope. Huh. Okay, we're back on Twitch. Are we back on YouTube? Twitch is back. Good. Twitch is... I do like Twitch. It is easy to deal with these sorts of issues. YouTube's back. There we go. Right. So we were just... I don't know what happened there. So actually a fault I've never seen before. I could see all the chat. Just couldn't... For some reason, just the video disconnected. I don't know if that came from Streamlabs or not, but anyway, it seems to be working again, which is great news. So thank you to Grant Joseph Long for the very kind super chat. Grant says that they're new to the channel, trying to use tutorials to hone the instrument flying skills as best they can. So thank you, Grant. Really appreciate it. Very kind of you. Okay, so good. Where were we now? I was probably nattering about something or another. What was I doing? Down here, we've done all that. I think it's time to load up the box, as it's often referred to. Yeah, I think everybody lost a signal there. Jetpack Away says, got my first flying lesson on Saturday. Excellent, enjoy that. So let us jump into the MCDU. So I think I've updated this. I think 2009 is the latest. So we're going to be FFT 305. We're going to go from KMCO to KIAH. Alternate. Now the alternate was ridiculous, so I'd probably not expect that to be realistic. Dallas, but it's a long way. Concept was planned at 40, cruising at 340. Align IRS. Yeah, it does. In these older ones, it would need that. Can't do the wind. Or can we do the wind? No, it won't work because we're not on that sim. I don't think. Anyway, I wonder what it does. Oh, no, it does work. You must load it from the sim. Great. So that is data and init of diff strip. So next to flight plan. Right, let's grab the weather actually. So very commonly, the first thing you do when you sit down, or pretty soon after you sit down, is grab the weather. It just gives you an idea of what on earth is going on around you, especially if you've got a lot of runways in use. Now we don't have an ATIS here, but it's a northerly wind, 330 at 8. So let's go to... well, let's write that down actually. Need a printed copy with us. So we're going to have an altimeter of 3010. So relatively high pressure it seems. And it's going to be 330 at 8. Thanks for the subscription to I Am. Good. Nope, not there. Or there. Let's go. What am I doing? Why can't I get to the charts? Shouldn't that be here? What have I done wrong? Tony says, do UK Euro carriers require AP running and bleed air before passenger loading? Most US carriers do. We didn't in Europe until COVID, and now we do. Pretty much. It's not a hard rule. You know, you can still fly without an APU. It might you know not come on for a few minutes after you board. It's not like that serious, but it's something we should do. Thanks, James. Glad you liked the last live stream. Thanks. Appreciate it. Yeah, that's not very convincing, is it? There's something going on here. Which means we've lost our charts. Which is... so we're going to no VATSIM and no charts, which is quite impressive. Yeah, there should be a little box there. Alright then. Well, need to re-log in Avitab with nav data. Okay. Stand by. Stand by, everyone. We'll be back in just a sec. Okay, that worked. Good stuff. So we're parked up here on Terminal 2 on 112. So we are just here. Thanks for that tip. Excellent news. So, northerly wind. What would be a suitable departure? So, any of the 3-5. So let's go for... what's the nearest taxi? Probably just to go down to 3-5 left. Then we avoid crossing a runway. So we'll take 3-5 left for departure. And the plan was the Lude, which luckily runs from all of them. So we're going to take the, whichever this one is. Ah, this is a thing in America then. That's quite annoying to look at, isn't it? Thanks, Ned, for the subscription. So we're going to head out down here and then take off to the north. And it's all just called one thing. It's all just called Lude 2. So we can do that. 3-5. We've decided that is 3-5 left. It's always a puzzle. Just trying to make a puzzle. Oh no, it's going to be a transition. So we're trying to get to Remis. Is that on here? Oh, it's all gone wrong. It's all unravelled. So 3-5 left is typical for departure. Thank you, Orlando Broncos. Appreciate it. Yeah, so it's Leeward. Oh, there we go. Leeward 2. No, so it won't let me select it. I can't scroll any further. It doesn't seem to be appearing. And that's unusual because I'm certain I updated it. I'm certain. Because we checked. Let's go to plan, zoom out, see. So we want to go northwest because we are heading ultimately west. So I can see what's going on here. Yeah, it should match the runway unless something unusual is going on. Lude 2, Lude all runways, Remis, Cigar. Let's take a look at what these other ones are. What's Orlando 4? So these are just sort of initial climbs. So that's no good. Usually just does vectors. Fair enough. I wonder what one of these we should use then. What does McCoy do? Well, do they just go straight ahead to 500 feet? So we'll do that. We'll do that. That'll work. Yeah, obviously just vectors. And from there, we will finally head to our magical Lude, or leeward, waypoint. Which doesn't exist. Oh dear. I totally get why people find this a really hard part of flight planning. It's often one of my more asked questions. Because this is inevitably what you end up doing. Anyway, we're supposed to go via Remis, so let's try Remis. It's obviously just all missing from the database there. No, Remis exists, that's good. And then from Remis, we'll take the airway, Yankee 280. To Lev. Keep your fingers crossed every time I press it. Yes, there we go. And it's a pretty straight line actually. We're just going to head west out over the sea, which you can see if I go on here, zoom out a bit. That manual point's way too far in the future, but if we scroll through, we just scroll west. So Lev, after Lev, it's got Guano. Where is Guano? Guano's right in front of us, so we don't want that. So here you go. So it's dumped a waypoint somewhere back here. We can take vectors, so forget that. And then I'm going to put in the arrival. Planned arrival was Gilco 5 onto three right. So Lauren V doesn't reckon that's a likely arrival. I'm just going to stick it in for now, so I have a flight plan that works. On a longer flight, especially a 2-hour flight, there'd be nothing wrong with just doing nothing at this point. You could leave it blank. It does make a nice. So what has this got? Vectors. Yeah, there you go. It makes a nice sort of connection and line. So let's connect up Walder and Lev for now. And that gives us a distance, just to check that we've got something sensible in there. But even if you didn't connect it, you should still get a distance in the real aircraft. It's very good. It does make some assumptions about your routing. There you go. 3 right would have you landing to someone taking off on 15 left. Glad it's offline. Exactly, yeah. The magic of being offline. Good. So that is flight plan. Secondary, I'm just going to copy. I've got no real use. We could put it in here and arrival back in if we wanted from Remis. So that means we'll just carry off into the infinite. But at Remis, let's put in new destination KMCO. And let's land back onto ILS 35 right, which I think was where we arrived to last time. Unusual to have to insert on the secondary flight plan, but I think in this one it does anyway. There we go. So that now, the secondary, the white line on the navigation display is set up for a return. Some pilots like this because they feel like they have a pre-prepared plan for the return if they need to. I usually would just modify the primary. I don't think it's too difficult, but I can see why, especially if you have a complicated engine failure procedure with lots of terrain around. Now it's time for init B. So I'm going to need to put up some numbers. Let's fill the screen. There we go. So how is it already 30 minutes of streaming? I can't believe it. I thought we'd be gone by now. Not far to go though, not far to go. So let's go to charts. So something to note is, you know, we sit here and we do this, and the magic of simming is we get to just focus on whatever we want and do that. What would have happened in the meantime while we've done all this is the passengers have finished boarding. The doors shouldn't have armed actually. Those slide lights mean they've armed. But anyway, they'd have finished boarding. The dispatcher therefore would have come and wanted to collect paperwork. The fuel would have been done. We'll need to sign for that and do the necessary checks to make sure it's not incorrect. Very easy. I will talk about fueling issues. There's been some articles by Airbus about it. Very interesting. But you can sit on an airplane that looks absolutely fine in the flight deck with no warnings and have some serious fuel problems if you don't do these quite basic checks. So Anyway, lots of things to distract us. That's my point there. Okay, zero fuel, it should be about 68 tons. So what have we got at the moment? I think we had about 180 passengers according to my plan. 674. So let's load up the aft cargo, get that CG back a bit. And you might be able to hear the first officer complaining. Hello. But she's quite a long way away, just shouting from another room. And we're going to go with the block fuel. So you can see Dallas Fort Worth, 2.2 tons, 46 minutes away. Quite a lot, quite a long way. But there we go. So 11.2. Let's try. Let's go with that amount of fuel. Because they've given us, what's the taxi fuel? They've given us 270, which is a good amount of taxi fuel as well. So I think for once, we'll just go with it, see what happens. Then we can discuss if we get any trouble. Because we've got nice weather at both ends, I think. Let's do that. Let's do that. Great. And finally, let's load it up. So 0 fuel 68.1. A heavy airplane. Max 0 fuel 28.2. It's always pretty forward on the 321s. Block, just check it on here, most importantly, because that's the number that matters, 11.2. So we would get a fuel receipt from the fueler. So they will know, we know how much the airplane arrived with. It's written into the technical log. So for every flight we do, there's some paperwork, or it could be on a computer. Depends on your company's procedures. But what you have to do is put your remaining fuel on arrival into that. And then if the engineers burn some fuel on engine runs, they have to write it in as well. The reason is, when the airplane goes for its next flight, the crew that get on need to know how much fuel was in it. Because we then ask for fuel, so we say to the fueler, I want 11.2 tons. Fueler then loads that up, and now we've got it, and then they'll give us a receipt, and the receipt will tell us how much fuel they put in. But they don't measure it in weight, they measure it in litres, just like when you buy fuel in a petrol station, gas station. So we only measure our fuel in weight because, of course, the volume of the fuel will change. If you heat it up, it's going to be less dense. So you actually have less fuel. And what matters to us is the weight, because it's the weight of fuel that we actually burn. We don't care how many litres we burn. We need to know how much it weighs. So there's all sorts of clever condensers and so on in the Airbus fuel system that will measure that weight. So anyway, we will get this fuel receipt. It will tell us how many litres they put on. We then convert that to a weight using the specific gravity, which the fueler will know. They'll tell us, because in a hot country or where the fuel was warm, it could be quite light, or vice versa. And then we check that that's roughly what we've got. So within a couple of 100 kilos, really, we'd like to see that number match if we add it on to what we had. So that's what we're going to do, which is just to check for any discrepancy in the fuel systems. Very important, though. I can't overstate how important that is. Good. Taking off at 79 tons, landing at 73 tons. So performance then. 3.5 left, no shift. We're going to go for flaps 1. And they like having this, it seems, the ToLiss now. Would never do this in the real airplane, NEO or not, but there we go. Flex to temp 41. And speeds, 151. Pretty good speeds. 155. 158. Good. Clean 231, which is totally reasonable. Let me just write that trim down 0.3, or otherwise known as 29.3. I prefer the 29.3. I think most airlines would, because of the down 0.3, what it's talking about is this dial here, but obviously you could accidentally set up 0.3. Ultimately, it's basically 0, as you can see. Mr. Espresso, good to see you. I hope you're doing very well. Thanks for joining us. And indeed, Jacob, this is only for XP11, I'm afraid. And it's floating because I just clicked on it. It is nice and simple. Arjun says, does it happen in the real aircraft where it doesn't know the waypoints? Not really. It's your flight plan should match your database. So I've never had that where a valid waypoint isn't known. Some waypoints, like coordinated waypoints, like over the North Atlantic, it won't know. But that's a different issue. Good. Andrew says, are you using the new SOP? No. Right. Thank you, 78, for the subscription. So that's the box done up to the perf page. So we'll have pilot flying on perf, probably pilot monitoring on flight plan. We'll just check our distance. So it's a 2-hour flight, 155. So actually it reckons we're not going to do as badly as SimBrief. 791 miles. Let's just check that's right. 782. So it's a good distance. I suspect the winds aren't quite matching up, hence the time difference. Remaining fuel 5.4 tons. From this, I would expect to land with 3.5 plus the contingency fuel, 4.2-ish. So there's a definitely discrepancy in that. I'm just guessing there's a difference in expected. Hello. Well, the first officer's going to join us as loud as possible. Yeah, there we go. The trip fuel 5.6. So the missing SID and star seems to be changing the expected fuel there. I'm just going to sort out the info. Come on. She can't jump onto my lap like she normally would. For those of you who don't know, this is of course the cat. She can't jump onto my lap because I've got the Windwing. I'm using the Windwing A3XX grip for this, which sits in the way of her route to jump on me. So I have to pick her up and maneuver her around it so she doesn't bump her head. But there we go. Right, that's calmed down. She sat down. That's very good. Always just in time for taxi. Right, there we go. So anyway, enough discussing fuel. Let's get going. Not many streamers spend 45 minutes sitting here. That can go on. Get the APU up and running. That's all ready to go. Loading's done. Doors are closed. Goodbye. Let's call the pushback tug.
Please show me where you want to go.
Oh, that'd be a long way out there. I wonder where they would normally push you. I assume these ground markings are accurate. They're usually pretty good. If this was Scandinavia, it'd just be a straight push like that. And then we can turn from there.
Ground to cockpit. Tow is driving up.
Good stuff. Right, so we have a taxi plan. We can forget that. So we're going to go out, then join probably hotel and taxi down for departure. So we're going to push back somewhere here, and then we can just take Hotel 1 onto hotel. Good. Terrain-wise, pretty reasonable. 100 foot elevation, 3,000 foot MSA, pretty straightforward. So that's all good. We're going to climb up, and let's stop at 10,000 initially. Great. We need to set our altimeter to 3010, which has worked. How did it do that? That's very good. I don't remember setting that.
Okay, all doors and hatches are closed. Ready to connect.
And this is great because I can actually convert it over here. 3010 is 1019. So, slightly high pressure. Probably a short straight push is like, that makes sense. Marcus, good to see you. First day flying, excellent. I hope it was good fun. Evening, Michael John, indeed.
Tow connected and bypass pin inserted.
Okay.
Release parking brake.
So we're not going to adjust yet. We are going to run through the before start checklist. So, final check now. So we'd called our traffic at this point, get our clearance and get push start. If that's approved, beacon can go on. Transponder to transponder. Thrust lever is definitely at idle. Ooh, that's not good. Let's see. There we go. Thrust lever at idle. And windows closed. And we'll run the before start checklist. So copy prep completed. Gear pins and covers removed. Signs are on and auto. We can get rid of the ground power. Turn on the APU bleed. ADs are all in nav. The fuel quantity we have are 11.2 exactly. Takeoff data is set, and that should be on that. And the baro ref of 3010 is set. Windows doors are closed, beacon on, mobile phones off, thrust levers idle, parking brakes set. So the ground has asked us to release those, so we're finally going to head away. So brakes released, and simultaneously run the mission clock. There we go. I'm going to have to rain on, not expecting any nasty weather. And then this is a ToLiss thing, I think. Why are the brakes not working? Huh. This is a chocks thing. Chocks.
Starting pushback, and you may start engines.
Chocks are a constant nuisance in Flight Simulator. They are used routinely. They are a part of day-to-day operating of airliners, which is, I think, I always find that amusing. You know, they've been around for so long. Chocks, you know, they're from, you know, pretty much the first aeroplanes, certainly used in the World War I and II, and it's great. It's just a foolproof invention. So a lot of airlines, maybe not when they're using a jet bridge like this, but it's not uncommon, especially if you don't have a jet bridge, to park up. Once the chocks are in, you'll release the parking brake and then disembark the passengers without the brake on, which sounds counterintuitive, but what it does is it means the airplane rolls onto the chock, because they should be, I say roll, they should be pretty much touching the tyre anyway. So it sits on the chock, and then the plane just sits still, and that way the hydraulic systems don't get so much pressure, and it can help the brakes cool down. So it's particularly useful if you're running without brake fans or something like that. So yeah, that is quite normal. But if you've parked up at a jetty and then you release the chocks, because the airplane might roll a little bit, normally people don't do it there. I wonder what they do in America. Apparently they're opening a new terminal in Orlando, so yeah, very good. See you, Victor Tango, thanks for coming along. Yeah, chocks, everyone saw the chocks problem before me. Let me know about the audio once we get the engines running as well, everybody. So, start up engine number 1. I think we'll do single engine taxi today. There it goes. And it can save us the argument about why we start number 2. That hasn't worked because I've set it to crank. There we go. That would help. Try that again. I've been flying for, don't want to be too specific, but I'll give you approximately 10 years. What's the preference, 321 or 320? If the weather's nice, 321. If the weather's windy, 320. I do enjoy my job, Jamie's. I do indeed.
Operation complete. Set parking brake.
Is it worth the investment is a question only you'll be able to answer. You've got to really want it, because it does come with its issues.
Disconnecting tow. Stand by.
Adam says, are you sure you're real about it? Indeed. Well, I will reveal that, yeah, that isn't the first time I've ever done that in my life. That usually comes from, there you go, engine's available. Not doing single engine taxi for a while. Right, goodbye to the ground crew. That is set. Engine mode selected back to norm. Then we're going to turn on the yellow electric pump. We're going to turn off the APU bleed. Then we're going to come down here. We're going to arm the ground spoilers, reset the trim, set the flaps to 1. You turn on the yellow pump first, because if we look at the hydraulic page, you'll see that that yellow pump powers the yellow system, which of course is used for some of the flap system, which we can't actually see on here. It's not displayed like that. If you try to do that without turning on the yellow pump, it will work. It will just work hard, and it will give you a caution eventually. There you go, list them in. Usually forgets to put it back to norm after start. Yeah, easily done. When would you use the different navigation modes? Arc, flight plan, etc. Well, I'm going to use Arc now. Plan I use in the briefing stage, so briefing before we go, and in the cruise. Arc will be used now, pretty much. You could also use nav, especially if the departure was going behind us. It can help your SA, but most people, Arc is very common. I have tried flying in VR. I love it. I haven't done it for a while, but I really like it. Anyway, ground crew signal, yeah, received. Good. So, you can hear that electric pump whine. Good. I think that's us. Oh, and the trim we wanted to set 29.3, which you won't be surprised to hear is pretty much where we were, slightly towards down. Good. So, after such checklist is anti-ice not required, ecam status checked, pitch trim 29, rudder trim 0. It's an unusual checklist I've got here because, of course, I'd also consider the flaps being quite important, but it does come up later. Right. The cat is really using her claws. Do you mind? Thank you. Yeah? Good. Right. Ready for taxi. So we got our plan. Let's just make sure we know where we are. We're going to go left, hard left, second right. Don't really want to roll forward, so we'll do the brake check after we've done the turn. Turn the lights on. We'll just start that second engine once we're rolling down there. Now, I hope I've got the tiller removed so I can actually steer with my feet. Because, again, using the A3XX grip means we don't get the option, the luxury. So only one engine makes this twice as tricky because I've got to also turn into the live engine. So the way to do this, make sure you are moving. Bit of power. Can you hear the aeroplane, everybody? Let me know. So anti-ice, good question mark, is used at temperatures of 10 degrees or below in visible moisture or icing conditions. So on the ground, that would involve, if it was wet outside, even if it wasn't raining, but if it was wet and below 10 degrees, we would run the anti-ice. Because, of course, the engines, as we crawl around this corner, yeah, not ideal. But possible, especially as we can just widen the turn. We're not about to hit anything in front of us. But yeah, so if there's water down here, it's being sucked into the engine, so we'd have it on to protect the intake from building up ice. 10 degrees or below. Why 10 degrees? Well, air that gets reduced in pressure cools in temperature. So obviously the intake of an engine is very low pressure. You've got the engine sucking in all that air. So it's prone to icing before the temperature actually gets that cold. Same on piston engine airplanes. The carburetor, you can get icing in temperatures above 0. So that's why we do it at 10 degrees. In flight, it means entering clouds or being in rain. On the ground, also being in rain or fog. If you're in thick fog, even if the ground is dry, but it's below 10 degrees, that would also involve leaving the icing on because it's just lots and lots of moisture in the air, like when it's raining. Okay, you like the airplane a bit louder, I'm guessing? Can't icing conditions exist even when there isn't visible moisture? So good question. See how that sounds. In a carburetor, piston engine airplane that is, yes. In a jet airplane, those are the conditions. So it's visible moisture or precipitation or wet runway. We aren't as worried because there's no carburetor in these. The ice we're protecting from is on the intake of the engine. That's the difference here. So in a carburetor, it's inside. I wonder if you can hear me out here. Swamp flies, yeah. Wired Womble made this. This is my actual cat. But you can see this is pretty realistic. It's taking us a bit of effort. You could do this quicker than I'm doing it. I'm busy chatting, but yeah, very possible to taxi around even against the live engine. Right, brake check we should do. So squeeze the brakes, check the needles don't pop up here. And yeah, interestingly, they don't work at all. Now, we've had this happen before. Okay, the first officer's leaving just at the wrong moment. Let's try and do... Oh yeah, no, not that hard of a turn. There we go. Right. This is annoying because I had this working earlier. We'll get away without it. But when we start... So on one engine, the Airbus is nicer to taxi. Going for an hour. I do apologise. Thanks for the subscription. What is going on here? This has happened before. And it says regular brakes assigned. No. Oh well. Yep, good to know now. So yeah, our brakes don't work. Now obviously that's not a realistic thing to have. So let's start off slow and let's start up that second engine because that's going to just distract me otherwise. So we've got to turn off the electric pump. We don't need that anymore. And we turn on the AP bleed. So now you can hear the PTU running, which is pretty realistic. AP bleed is what we're going to use to start the engine. Next, we're going to put the mode selector to ignition start. Bring out the start page. That turns off the air conditioning packs, and then we can turn on the start for number 2. So that's on, and start the clock. Yeah, I've had this with the ToLiss before. It worked. I've reloaded the sim a couple of times while trying to sort out Xpilot, and it worked every time, but magically it doesn't now. As is typical. Let's get a bit of speed going. Yes, you're absolutely right. Extra controller was plugged in. But again, it was working earlier. No, that's not fixed it. Don't know. Anyway, that's the number 2 started and available. So, back to norm. Bleed off, APU off, trims are set, flaps are 1+F. We don't need the anti-ice. We're good to go. I like single engine taxi a lot. It makes a lot of sense. It saves a noticeable amount of fuel. You know, if that was 10 minutes of taxi, that could be 50, 60, 70 kilos of fuel, which is, if you do that every flight, it's great. It's quieter. It obviously produces less exhaust, and the airplane's nicer because with 2 engines running, the airplane gradually runs away. It accelerates all the time. On one engine, it doesn't. So it saves us having to constantly use the brakes to slow down, not that we have any today, and it also means that the brakes pads, which are made of carbon, they don't like being repeatedly applied. They like to be applied just once and that's it. So with single engine taxi, everything's just slower, easier. It's great, and it burns less fuel, uses less brakes. Right, let's do a flight control check. So can't do that until both engines are running. Full up, full down, neutral, full left, full right, neutral. Can't do the rudder check just because of the steering tiller, but we would do. Oh, there you go, there's full right. Oh no, shouldn't have done that. And full left. Yeah, so of course the real rudders aren't that aggressive, but you also would disconnect them, which I did have assigned. That. Nope, don't know how to make that work. No, there we go. Good to see you, Andy. Hope you're doing very well. Thanks for joining us. Good. Well, we've got to taxi down the whole runway. There is a button for that. I did have that button assigned. I'm going to have to do some work on this. Oh, there you go. That's the auto brake button. So we're going to set the auto brakes to max. Good. APU still says avail. It's not really. It's just winding down any second now. Ding on the cabin. Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Reverse thrust for braking. So if we were in the aircraft and we suddenly applied the brakes and we found nothing worked, like this, we have a memory item. It's called loss of braking. It's a very important one. It's one of the few memory items we have on the Airbus. Most things are written out for us, but the memory items we just have to know. Now, on an aircraft like the Dash 8, it's actually a memory item on how to shut down and feather the engine, but it's not on the Airbus because the ECAM will guide you through it. But this one is. So loss of braking, you announce it so the other pilot knows, because obviously otherwise only one of you is going to realise, because only one of you is trying the brake. So you say loss of braking. Then you will select max reverse. Then you will release pressure from the brake pedals. You have to release it. Anti-skid nozzle steering off, which swaps us to the alternate brakes. And then you will apply the brakes. Now, it hasn't worked here, but you'll see the reversers have actually stopped us. And I believe they would, maybe not quite that quickly, and you could get some engine stalling. You'll probably damage the engines because we'll suck in a load of stones and so on as we do that. But anyway, let's turn it all back on. But yeah, what you're doing there is forcing the airplane to use its alternate braking system. By the way, if you ever find yourself going backwards, do not apply the brakes, or if you do, very slowly, or you'll just tail tip the airplane. They are not designed to go backwards. If you can use the engines, that's much better. Right, let's get that going. Serious pilot says, steady on, I've built my GNT. Yeah, exactly. So it's not recommended to use reversers routinely during the taxi for the same reasons. Taxiways aren't as clean as runways. Remember, the runway has jet engines blasting it clean all the time, as well as routine inspections. Taxiway is less so, so you get bits of rubbish and debris going across them. So if you're at low, especially at low speed, which is another problem, If you're going at 150 knots with reversers out, even though they're blowing air forwards, they're not blowing it forwards enough to suck it back into the engine because of the airflow, the way you're moving through the air. However, if you're going at 20 knots along a taxiway like this, then you can run into problems, because if we put up the reversers, that air gets pushed all the way forwards and sucked back in, which means any stones and gravel underneath the engine can just be put into the engine and damage it. But there we go. Right, we are almost there. So, flight controls are checked, flight instruments are checked, briefing confirmed, flap setting config 1% green, and config 1 blue. FMA takeoff data, we got 151, 158, climb that blue, 152, climbing to 10,000 feet. Flex 41 today. We can do the transponder to TARA. Let's imagine we clear design up now. So we'll stick all the lights on. Transponder to TARA, ECA memo, takeoff, no blue. Cabin is secured, engine mode selected, normal, TCAS, TARA packs are both on. So we are ready to go. Just aware that we have no brakes and we're doing 20 knots. Just over an hour, we're still on the taxiway. Yeah, this is bad. We started a little bit late. I don't know how that's happened. We haven't had to do any VATSIM stuff. I've just been talking too much. I'm genuinely quite surprised. I thought we were going to do better today. Let's see if we can stop before the end here. Oh yeah, we'll make it for this one. Right, it's clear on approach. Clear on the runway. That's not very comfortable for the passengers swinging the airplane around like that, but there we go. Let's line up. Just a bit fast. Okay, we are ready to go. Let's get underway. So, let's start the timer. Oh, no, let's just reset it. 50% on the M1, half side stick forward, and take off. Man, Flex 41, SRS, runway, order thrust is blue and arms. So, side stick to neutral now, and 100 knots is a call out, where we both check our airspeeds are matching up. There's V1, rotate, quite a fast speed. Positive climb, gear up, nav. No idea what that was. No idea. With some slew mode, we'll arrive on time. Was that just the marker beacon, was it? Yeah, I haven't heard that in the... you don't really hear it on departure. I don't think I've ever heard one on departure in the real aircraft. But yeah, I suppose that would make sense. We might hear the middle marker in a second as well. There we go then. 1500 feet, thrust climb, auto thrusts. AP1. Now we're not going to fly the wrong direction, are we? So let's take it direct to Remis, off to the left, and insert. And the departure shot. Oh, excellent. Right, auto flap retraction, there they go, flaps coming in, gives us a new speed limit of they got 238, so they got the increased speeds in this airplane. There we go, above S speed, flaps to 0. Disarm the ground spoilers. And turn off the nose gear lights. Okay, I want to go straight up to 340. There it is. Set standards. Standards. After taking climb, check this landing, get up, flaps retracted, packs are on, bow rest standards set. We are on our way. Great news. This is actually this. Oh, this must be Orbex then. Yeah. Yes, of course, because we flew here last time and we couldn't see it. Where's Disney World? I am looking. Or Universal then. Where's Universal? There it is. There it is. That's got to be it. Isn't it? This area? I feel like it is. Maybe not. There's a ride of some sort. Good. So, lots of questions came up there. I saw about why I set standards. You set standard when you're cleared to a flight level. So, the transition level in America is 18,000 feet. We're now through 10,000 feet, or flight level 100. But when you're cleared to it, you set it because you're going to it. So, there's no point waiting. Unless there's a procedure in America I don't know about, however. But, yeah. I can't see the advantage of staying on an altimeter, but maybe in America you do because it's such a long way and it's possible. But in Europe you certainly would just set it when you're cleared to it. So through 10,000 feet, let the passengers go. Oh. Lights off. I'm going to go to airport. Probably both pilots would, although that's not really written down anywhere. And secondary, we're just going to copy in the active. No need to concern ourselves otherwise. We'll do a systems check when we're up in the cruise. We are accelerating. We've got quite a high speed for this sector, going along at Costinex 40, so not much time we can make up on top of that. Yeah, this is Orbex is always excellent. This is no exception. There she is. Noises cat. Lauren B says, in America we set it when passing through 180, not when cleared to flight level. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I wonder why. Tapping Squirrel says, how many nights do you spend away from home, and do all the aircraft crew all the aircraft crew such as flight attendants stay in the same hotel? That will depend. All of that depends entirely on who you work for. On little airplanes, and I call them little airplanes with affection, but yeah, this is a short haul aircraft. If you do stay away, it won't be for long. It will just be for a night, maybe two. Often this airplane would be used regionally, I say regionally, on short haul, meaning that you'll probably not even stay away, but some airlines will have you overnight at places. Depends on how they run their system. Arjun says, why would you want to take off and land with higher or lower flaps? I know it's because of runway distance, but why wouldn't you just want the most flaps? Well, that's a great question. So having less flaps is less drag. So the airplane goes faster and it uses less fuel because there's less drag. So it's a little bit more efficient to go with less flap. The other advantage is you get better climb performance when you're in the air because you've not got all that drag of the flap out. So if the runway is long enough, then less flap is always preferred. It's also easier to handle an engine failure with less flap. You'll typically be going faster if it happened at V1 because your V1 speed will be higher, so you have more authority over the rudder, better controls, and then when you get in the air, the airplane has less drag, so it's got more spare performance, and you're starting from a faster position. So yeah, everyone prefers flat 1 for engine failures. So it's nice, it's more efficient, it uses less drag, and it's easier if the engine fails. That's why we like it. But these aren't life-changing differences. They are just some perks of it. But yeah, good question. Kai says, Shalom Captain, I'm here to say hello. I need to go do some homework and then LTFM ground. Have a safe flight. Thanks very much for coming on, Kai. We'll see you next time. Enjoy the homework. Blue Games, good to see you. Blue Games, a fellow streamer, I'm sure many of you know. So thanks for coming on, Blue Games. Blue Games says, sup man, come to gate A11. I'll greet you at the jet bridge. Excellent, A11. Write it down now. Sadly, we aren't on VATSIM. We had a technical problem. Completely messed up the start of this. But yeah, good to see you, Blue Games. Hope you're doing very well. Thanks for joining us. AstroJu says, some operators don't use 1+F on the 321 due to tail strike. Indeed, yeah, that is true. Some do and some don't. I personally, I don't think there's an issue. The NEO has a tail strike bumper built in. I think if you went back and looked through the records of how many tail strikes have been in a 321 in config 1+F on takeoff, I wonder if that backs that up or whether it's just a nervous thing, because it does look a lot longer than the 20. But you know, I used to fly the Dash 8 Q400, which could tail strike at 6 degrees, so that's pretty hopeless. Blue Games says this in real life flight parks to gate 11. That's where I work the ramp. There you go. So Blue Games, you work the ramp at Houston. Excellent. I've definitely got the wrong flight number. I felt bad as I put this in because I thought Frontier probably do fly this. I use sequential flight numbers, so this is just the last one. I was jet set 304 on my previous sector, so this one's 303. Sorry, 305, but I had a horrible feeling it wouldn't be accurate. I wish we were on VATSIM though. It's I'm a little bit disappointed in that. A11, that's where we'll go. Ryan says, have you ever done a flat 3 takeoff? Yes, many times. Very normal. Flat 1, 2, 3. Yeah, all of them. Thanks very much, Blue. Thanks for joining us. Enjoy your day. Jonathan's Solid says, flying to Houston tomorrow, real world. Excellent news. Enjoy it. Visit the Space Center. Listerman says, I'm also beginning to anxiously try to use real life call signs and routes and feel bad if I just make one up. Yeah, that's where I've ended up. So, Lucas says, does your backup altimeter, when not in standard, show both altimeter and QNH, or just QNH and small writing? How do you mean? Yeah, it shows. It does. It shows it like this. Yeah, I think that's accurate to the real one. Just because there's no button here to change it between the two, so I think that's why that's done like that. Whereas up here we have the option inches. That's best course. Yeah. Aerofly channel says you still didn't notice the auto brake. It's on min. Yeah, it's not talking with my hardware, so I can set low or medium. Yeah, so we took off with it in max, of course. Oh, it's not even doing. Yeah, not working now. So that's all right. I'll leave it in low. Low should be fine for our landing. Nothing. If you set it now, it doesn't make much difference. But yeah, well spotted. But that's just been selected. What happened was I turned it from max to off, but it seems it only accepts. I obviously don't have low set up properly. Oh, sorry, off selected. So I need to tune that. Lucas says fly-by-wire is just Q&H. No, I think fly-by-wire you can have in inches, because I've done American flights with it, so I'm sure you can. Brianne Silva, good to see you. How are you doing? It's been a long time. Brianne says, been working 60 hours a week for a while. I'm officially done with my year contract as of now. I have a surprise for you though. Oh dear, what's the surprise, Brianne? What are you up to next? What's the big adventure? Tour guiding the Great Barrier Reef or something? Brianne off on adventures around the world. Ed says the speed brake switch is a beta in Microsoft Flight Simulator as well. Speed brake switch. Is that the arming and disarming? Religious Maggie, good to see you. Typing Squirrel says, if you have an engine failure, how do the hydraulics work? So if you lost both engines, you would obviously have no hydraulics left, but you would find the ram air turbine comes down and would power the, wait for it, we can see it on here. RAT would power the blue hydraulic system, which would just give you the very basics, but indeed not a great day. It means auto brake switch, yes indeed. Lucas says, I tried to simulate the dual engine failure to turn on the APU, didn't get gear. No, so the gear is not supplied by the blue system. So if your green system is not working and you can't use the PTU from the yellow system, then to lower the gear you have to use the gravity gear extension. It's a very good system, doesn't need any hydraulics. So that's what you would use. You let the gravity drop the gear for you. They have indeed modeled the cabin in the back, Aerofly channel. That is really good. Orbex makes such a difference to explain. Sadly, I'm not using Cardagel's excellent IE mod. We are using the default engines due to just a lack of time sitting at the simulator getting this stuff sorted. It's been a little while. That's cool. That looks great. Love that. Arjun says, how is it for landing? Do you land with lower flaps as well? Is it for fuel? Yes, landing with lower flaps will be for fuel or wind shear reasons. Some people just prefer it. But yeah, it uses a little less fuel, so it's a little bit more efficient. It does use a little bit more brakes though. Short runway, of course, you use more flaps. I personally land flap full nearly always. I'll land flap 3 if it's a nice calm day on a long runway in a 21 or 19, but not in a 20. Concorde is still in its hangar. I will do a Twitch stream at some point as I try to work it out. Here we are then, coasting out. Brianne says, I'm going back home, fortunately to finally take the homework before I stop being a scuba diving instructor and hopefully start my PPL to become a pilot. Excellent. Amazing. It's amazing how, you know, this channel's been going for the best part of 2 years now, so we are seeing people. if you started flight training the day I started making videos, now you would be finished. Yep. If you did it full time, you'd now be sitting there with your license. So there you go. Shows how long we've been doing it. That Serious Pilot says, I'm putting your teaching to the test in August. I'm flying a real A320 sim. and I'm going to try and do a whole flight without crashing. Excellent. Enjoy. Goodness me, I hope I've probably missed a few topics. Right, last 1,000 feet to go. Get ourselves leveled off. Been 18 minutes to get to this point, so that's a quick climb. We've had good performance here. That's helped by that headwind. We've climbed into the strong headwind, so that has had an advantage to us. I'm actually just going to increase the cost index. Doesn't make much difference up here. What's our optimum? It's 345, so we'll stay at 340. Back out star. TCAS can now go to below. Fuel checks, it's sensible. 9.2 plus 2 tons would be 9.2 plus 1 is 10.2 plus another 1 is 11.2. So this number plus this number adds up to what we started with, so that's a good sign. Next, go through the systems. Yes, fantastic, perfect, excellent, great, wonderful, perfect, ideal, good, lovely, excellent. And take a break. That's that. Don't hit the timer. So we're heading along the coast. America is over there. Surprised actually we can't see it. Didn't realise we were that far away. Seatbelt signs are off. Everyone's cruising around. This is a nice length of flight. I like, you know, a 2-hour flight time is a good length. It gives you just time to... Oh, this grid bug. That doesn't annoy me. It gives you time to actually get a break and slow things down. On the ground, things are very hectic. You have a lot to do. You know, it's actually... The other thing is, you never get a full hour to prepare an aeroplane. Never. You'll arrive at the airplane, you know, 40 minutes before you're supposed to be pushing back. So it took me today on stream longer than we'd actually do it in real life, including boarding passengers, just to give you some context on how slick the system is. Because I appreciate there's more of us in the operation when that happens, but yeah, it's remarkable how slick, because it does rely on everything working right away, and if anything doesn't work, like the load sheet doesn't arrive in time or something like that, then immediately you're at risk of running late, any little slip up. But when it all works, and it mostly does, you are away in 35-40 minutes. It's great. Which is why when I sit here looking for charts and so on, that's where we really lost the time, you know, trying to relog into Navigraph and all that, which is my fault. I should have checked that. I've never had to relog in a year and a half, I don't think, so I don't know what happened there. Thank you for those follows and subscriptions. I do appreciate it. Evan said another 100, so thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Sadly, I cannot say who I work for. It's not my. Well, I'm not really allowed to talk about it. I say not allowed. That's probably not true. What it is for my own personal privacy. Also, I'm not representing an airline here, so if I say who I work for, it would come across. There's a risk it would look like I'm trying to represent them, and I'm not. So I'm not going to say it. This whole channel is nothing to do with any airline. It's entirely to do with me, and that's it. This is all my opinion on stuff, and I also wouldn't want to, even if I was allowed. I don't want to represent the airlines, the pilots of the airline that I fly for, because no one's voted for me to do that. So if I just start broadcasting and saying things and declaring myself, you know, then there's a natural sort of attachment to those pilots who might not want me representing them. So that's typically why. Thank you very much, Strad, and thank you to the other Jason for the $4.99 US. Really appreciate it. The other Jason says, I started lessons after your first Microsoft Flight Simulator videos and have my license now. There you go. Thank you very much, the other Jason. Really, really appreciate it. And what a fantastic story. I hope you're enjoying flying. Excellent. Yeah, so we started Microsoft Flight Simulator videos, would be when it came out, August? September? Elite's Maggie says, face reveal at 1 million subs. Yeah, I could probably promise that quite safely. Andre says, would any airline academy take in consideration if you wrote in your CV professional pilot in Microsoft Flight Simulator? Yeah, I suspect they would not find that very amusing. Professional streamer. But yeah, thank you again, the other Jason, and great to hear. Great to hear your story. Brianni says, I did get injured though during my job, so hopefully the medical goes well. What happened, Brianni? What happened diving? Because diving injuries can be very, very serious. So yeah, I hope you're well. Robbie says, watching live from an F1 factory near Oxford, currently getting hydraulics ready for the new season. Robbie Momo, don't tell me you work for a Formula 1 team. You will get a lot of questions. Fantastic, thanks for sharing that. Lucas says, is gravity gear extension modelled? I think it is. So the crucial thing with gravity gear extension is you cannot reverse it. It is not possible. So we will not. You need an engineer to reverse it. Also, dropping the gear at 34,000 feet is outside of the limit. Thanks, Marquez. See you next time. Good luck with that. Kidoko says, going to Keflavik in a few days. First flight and holiday since pre-pandemic and can't wait. Just imagining sitting down and hearing hello, hello in a familiar voice, yes. Luckily, I don't usually have to test the audio when doing the PA. I have a video on engine failures, Aerofly. Indeed, I do. You can, if you just stick that into YouTube, it should find it for you. Lauren V says, V1 says he likes 1 hour 47-minute flight time, just about enough time to have a break in the cruise. There you go. Yeah, I would agree with that. 147. That's probably a bit better than 2 hours, a bit more reasonable. Yeah. Captain, do you know how hot of an air will the passenger push into the cabin at their hottest? It seems to be 70 in the 321X. To the cold and dark in Canada yesterday, cabin temperature was below freezing. Well, I've never seen 70. If I was to set this to max, you never need to by the time you're in flight. There's so much air, especially when you're using the engine bleed air, which is what we're using in the cruise. The APU's off. There's so much airflow that it doesn't need to be that hot to warm up the cabin very quickly. When you're using the APU bleed on the ground and the airplane's very cold, you might set it higher, rarely fully hot. You do often set it very fully cold on the ground because just not enough air and it heats up quickly naturally, especially with people on board. But it's unusual to need it fully hot, especially. And once you get the engines running, you don't need anything set to the maximums because it's so powerful. So much air. This is why airplanes you'll have seen have been studied quite closely through the pandemic for their does it spread COVID? You know, it's what everyone wanted to know, and the studies all seem to suggest not really, not very well, because they have so much airflow. They just recycle air, pump new air in, and it's all being pushed back through filters all the time. So there's far more airflow in an airplane than any office, even with air conditioning or anything like that. Yeah, huge flow. But yes, I would say if you saw 40-degree air pumping out, then that would be sort of the most. It will depend as well. Remember, we're not setting I'm talking to myself here. We're not setting an actual temperature of the duct here. We're just setting a cabin temperature. So you can see there, I've told it I want the maximum temperature, which I think is 30 or something like that. So all it's having to do is pump in, or maybe it's 25. It's just pumping in air at that temperature because that air is replacing the other air so much. Now, slightly unrealistic. Thanks for those subscriptions, by the way. But yeah, this is slightly unrealistic because the real aircraft would probably have different temperatures coming in. So it's quite good to see the cockpit's a bit warmer with warmer air. What often happens is we are flying with the sun behind us, so the cockpit could get quite cold like this. There's only 2 of us in there, whereas the cabin has a lot of people. So it might be pumping in warmer air into the front. Likewise, if the sun was coming in the flight deck, it often has to pump in quite cool air because it gets heated up so much quicker because of all the big windows. Hello? Are you going away? She's missed the takeoff and now she's back. Birdman says, I watched your intuitive fuel calculation video the other day, but wondered what average weight they use for each of the passengers towards setting a zero fuel weight. That would depend on the country, the time of year, and what sort of flight. So sometimes it's about 80 kilos, sometimes it's less, more, depends. For example, if you're doing a ski charter where you've got lots of passengers who are going skiing, they'll have more equipment with them, so you have to assume that they're heavier. So yeah, that's typical, but it does vary. So there's no firm answer for that, I'm afraid. Oh, no. Dear, she's not understanding. She's trying to jump onto my lap in the most dangerous way possible, as you can imagine. It will probably involve me having my legs sliced to pieces by her claws, but there we go. Right. Good. Back into the chat. Yeah, so that hopefully, or it doesn't really answer your question, but apologies. Thanks, Richard, too. Appreciate it. Yanni says, if I finish my PPL and continue, can you make me the price of doing a PA without the company name, of course? Seems only fair for you not doing it. What I'll do, I've said this for years now, I will practice a PA to give you guys. Now, hopefully I won't accidentally reveal anything. I wish, I've been listening to a podcast by two radio presenters, and they talk about how on the radio you have the option to what's called dump. So you can dump the last 5 seconds of audio, and that would be really useful, so that if you say something you didn't mean to, or someone says something they shouldn't, you can dump it and then it doesn't go out on air. It's quite clever. Adam says, I work in the defence industry, very hush-hush, so when people ask if I say I work in the biscuit factory. Very good, yeah. Tom says, dropping the rat isn't reversible either. Ask me how I know. Indeed, good point. Yeah, very good point. Thanks, Ahmed says, I missed the start of your stream, which I've been looking forward to for a long time. I'm quite upset. I have learned and improved a lot from your bits, Captain. Thank you so much. You're very welcome, Ahmed. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. Martin Scott says, with the boarding feature in Microsoft Flight Simulator set to real time, I find it frustrating how long it takes. Yes, that is very true. Very true. It's, I think I've set it to real time. Still heading to first waypoint. Gulf of Mexico Siege. We are indeed, yeah. Yeah, I really thought we'd see land. I use Aerofly on my phone. Yeah, I like Aerofly, but only on my phone. I don't use it on the computer. Hayden says, are you looking forward to a turboprop flight where Microsoft Flight Simulator brings out the new propeller physics? Oh, I didn't know they were doing that. I will have to give that a go. Is that coming soon, is it? Brianni says, can't really disclose what happened on the water since it was during training a defence group, but got injured along my spinal cord. Hopefully be fine with some rest. Good luck, Brianni. I hope you get that sorted. Yes. Lots of things that can go wrong diving. It is not a risk-free situation to be in. So, yeah. Sorry to hear that, but I hope that gets sorted. Good luck. Yeah, definitely. Lisa Maggie says, it was set to normal, was targeting 22 degrees, so we're talking about the cabin air here, but the packs are pushing 70. I mean, I could believe they could push 70. I'm so the packs do have a range. Where is it? So at the moment they're pushing out 25 degree air. But yeah, and then they have the trim hot air valve. So I've never noticed that in the ToLiss before. That's incorrect. These don't click into position like that. They're just sort of dials. You can scroll them anywhere. It's interesting. Never noticed that. They changed it in the fly-by-wire A320X. I'm pretty sure none of them click anyway, but maybe there is an option. Orlando says, unfortunately, I suspect I caught COVID from a flight over Christmas. It wasn't too bad. Okay, sorry to hear that, Orlando. Yeah. I mean, still, if the person sitting next to you has COVID and you're on an airplane, then what can you do, you know? But it sort of works on the numbers that that's unlikely, I suppose, is the idea. Any tips for jet lag? I'm flying Heathrow to Sydney on Friday and looking for some tips, says that serious pilot. I'm only there for 5 days. Well, firstly, I'm jealous. Absolutely love Sydney. Amazing. Only there for 5 days is going to make the jet lag very difficult. It's a 2-day trip, really, isn't it? It's a full 24 hours of flying plus a break, and obviously arriving at the airport and so on. So when I flew to Australia, I set off, I think, in the evening time. Was it daytime when I got to... I flew via Singapore. It was on Singapore Airlines, who were excellent. And I remember I just sat on the plane. I don't sleep very well as a passenger on airplanes, so I was pretty much just sort of half dozing. So I think the flight out to Singapore, I just chilled out, watched films and TV shows. Then we got to Singapore, spent 2 hours there, and then swapped into another plane and headed down to Australia. And what I remember is we got to Australia in the sort of late afternoon time, or maybe it was early afternoon. But by the time we got off the airplane, got the luggage, got to the hotel, it was like late afternoon. Went in, had dinner, and then went to bed. Slept straight through from like an early evening time, from like 9 p.m. straight through to like 9 a.m. the next day, and then we were fine. So you might get lucky, depending on how the journey goes for you. You might avoid the worst of the jet lag. Fingers crossed. Right, this wind is worse than anticipated. We set off at 7, should land at 9. So it's 9:16. Could try going high. I recommend a max though is 368. We'll stick with it for now. So that'd be my tip. Well, not my tip, but it's my experience of it. But for 5 days, that's still a long way to travel. Terry says, regarding the crowd noises we're now hearing fly-by-wire, especially the safety briefs, do you actually hear those in the cockpit? The sounds of people boarding, I can understand as your door is open. I haven't seen those yet, Terry, so I don't want to comment on whether they're realistic or not. But noises you do hear, with the door closed, not much. Not much. You might hear if the safety demonstration very faintly, but not really. What you have to do is, if you want to hear any of the announcements going out over the PA, you click on PA here, and then you can listen. So that's what we would do to see if the safety demonstration is still running, or maybe to judge at what point in the safety demonstration the crew are at, so we can tell how long it will be before they're likely to be ready. No guarantees, of course, because they could have a problem after that, but it just gives us an idea of what's going on. So yeah. Interesting one. I'll have to listen to it. With the door open, yeah, you can hear it all. Yeah. But it's not very clear because, of course, the overriding noise on an airplane is all of this. It's the... apologies for that. It's the air conditioning, ambient noise, the ventilation, the fans behind the screens. They are very noisy. Thanks, Wicked Paul. Really appreciate it. Very kind. Tom says, write the PA down and just read the sheet. So but yeah, that's what I have to do. Perhaps the PA is the Manta one. I like that one, Richard B. Yeah. Something I've noticed recently as well is that I fly in the UK and most pilot PAs are identical. You almost can't tell them apart. I thought mine wasn't, but actually it is exactly the same. People asking to see the fin again. There she is. Get the sunny side. That's hilarious. Vuti2 asking about MDADH and radio. Maybe in my ILS charts tutorial, Vuti2. I think I explained it in there. Typing Squirrel says, as a cat owner, how much time do you spend with her? Whenever I'm home, if she's not asleep, then she'll be with me, or sitting on a radiator. She's not a very young cat anymore, so she's not a kitten. She doesn't run around too much. She does like to play every now and then, but there's a lot of snoozing and relaxing. Harry says, when the aircraft pushes back and you do your testing of the ailerons and surfaces, there's always a short, sharp buzz 2 or 3 times. Difficult question. I'm not sure what that's talking about, Harry. Possibly the PTU, the power transfer unit of the hydraulic system, possibly. If you're talking about your experience on real aircraft, it could be that they're doing flight control checks. No, you shouldn't do them until both engines are running, so I don't know, actually. I don't know. Not sure. Alpha Bravo is doing a 2-ish hour flight tomorrow. Not sure airline or route. Any recommendations? I'd like to fly in Europe. Yeah, you can do one of our classic routes. That would be 2 hours. So probably, yeah, you could do. We recently went to Malaga, didn't we? Did we? Can't remember now. London to Malaga. Manchester to Olbia. South Italy. That sort of place. Ron van der Sar is asking about vacuum control. Yeah, it's on the list. It's really difficult, but it is on the list. Wolf Film says, I'm wanting to be a pilot when I'm older. Any tips when becoming a pilot? So, big question. Look up, it all depends on your country. Look up what you need to become a pilot. What license does your country need? What training do you need? And where can you get that training? And what are the routes to get that training? So do you have to do it all at once? Can you do it while you're doing another job? Would that be better for you? Can you get an airline to pay for it and pay you while they train you? Or do you want to go to the military first and fly in your Air Force before using that experience to help you become an airline pilot? All sorts of different routes. So look up that sort of stuff. Figure out what license you need. Then you can adjust depending on how old you are, but if you're still at school, you can adjust your subjects perhaps to help you out with that. So having the right subjects might look good on an application to become an airline cadet, something like that. By the way, I would always recommend an airline cadet scheme over anything else. Having that first job lined up is the key. However, it's not perfect. Airlines can fail. Airlines can decide they don't want you even if they've signed up to have you. So there's no promises as ever. But look it up in that sense, and also look up what medical you need. So could you realistically expect to pass the medical assessment? Hopefully you can, but just worth checking, because if there's something restrictive, you want to start looking into that and get that sorted. There's loads of things. Get as much advice as you can. Ask loads of people, especially in your country or who've done a similar thing. Or maybe you could go to another country if you wanted to train there and all this sort of stuff. And how would that work? How would you get your license converted? Also, in terms of studying subjects, I just want to be clear. I said picking subjects that are suitable for flying, so or that you might help you get into these schemes is a good thing. I'm going to be very clear now, I hope. only worry about what you actually need. If you're not good at something and it's not actually required, then it's better that you don't fail it, and you did something that you actually enjoyed or were better at. There's no point putting yourself through a load of misery for something you didn't actually need, you know. So if you, that would be my advice anyway. It's better to have a a passing grade in something else than to have failed the right subject. So be very careful with that. So again, it all comes down to just look at what you actually need. You'll be surprised that the qualifications aren't usually that too high. But yeah, again, I can't really comment, and it's something you have to look up for where you are. But get advice from everybody you can, whether it's messaging airlines, asking them what they ask for. You know, you can do anything like that. Thank you so much, Paul9, for the very generous €20 super chat. Really appreciate Paul9. Very kind with a victory. Victory, is that a hippo? I think that's a hippo. Very kind. Really appreciate Paul9. It's very generous of you. I hope you're doing very well. Thanks so much. And also Hayden J. Roberts, thank you for your £3.21. I do indeed see what you did there. Very kind. Thanks for supporting the channel. So thank you, Paul9. That's very, very generous of you. And of course, again, thank you to Hayden. Really appreciate it. Right, now the first officer wants to leave. She's bored. She's just going to make a scene. Come on then. Carefully now. And she's gone. Nice cloud effects here. I see the word pizza, so I'm going to skip over that checkpoint. I haven't had dinner yet, so today is a late dinner, and that's why I'm slightly upset about my current arrival time. It's my fault. I'm hungry. Probably pasta for dinner tonight. And he says, as a former bus and coach driver, you have no idea how much I envy your armoured plantate door. It is, obviously I'm not going to talk about them, the uses of the door, but something that isn't of note is that security aspects totally aside, we're not talking about security here, we're talking about just the flight deck door. It is a useful tool if you're having a complex day where lots of things are going wrong operationally and you're getting a lot of questions and issues from the cabin, or you need to work something out, or something complex has happened, like the runway's suddenly been snowed in and contaminated, and suddenly you've got to de-ice and you haven't got an APU, so you've got to run the de-icing single engine checklist, and also you've got to work out the performance on a contaminated runway, and this is all building up and up. Once that door is closed, you actually get a bit of breathing space. So it might be that you want to close it early and then you can get on with this stuff because you're getting too many interruptions. It might be that you close the door temporarily on the ground just to... If you see the pilots do that, it's not because they're trying to hide from any problems, it's because they need some space to work through something. Because it's very important, some things are done with full attention and not divided attention. So indeed. Flyby 007 says, hello, first time catching a live stream since I live in Australia. It is 6:30 AM in Canberra. It's a long flight over here. Yes, it is a long flight indeed over there, but that's great to see you, Flyby, and it's an advantage of streaming at different times. I said I would. We are going to be running straight through to 9 UTC, so still very good for joining us a bit early. There's a new patch for the Twin Otter. I look forward to that. Michael says, west is best, east is beast. There you go, in terms of jet lag, yeah, some people find it more difficult. Okay, I have to try out the new props in the new sim update indeed. Birdman says, when taxiing on one engine, is the other warmed up ready for man flex toga? Yeah, just 3 minutes on Neos, 5 minutes on IE. So these ones will need 5 minutes if they're cold, 3 minutes if they're hot. So 5 minutes worst case. That's all they need to warm up. That's if they're totally cold, more than 2 hours shut down. See you, Ed. Thanks for coming along. Oh, is it Pancake Day today? I do actually have the thing for that. I'll be eating at about 11 o'clock at night though. Yes, it is. Of course it is. Shrove Tuesday. Oh, well, I do have the thing. I don't have any syrup, but I have butter. I've got golden syrup, but that's not right. It needs to be maple syrup. Well, there we go. I'll have to try and make some pancakes. Thanks for those subscriptions. Hope you enjoy the stream. Lona says, no VATSIM, can you use time acceleration? What's the command? How do we do that? Does time acceleration work on the ToLiss? Is it in here? I feel like there's the risk of a problem if we do that. Should we risk it? Let's save the config. Will it change the fuel? We have 7.7. Oh, unbelievable. The ToLiss, once again, ridiculous. It's a ridiculously powerful simulation. This is... I'm speechless. That's amazing. So not only does it jump to the next waypoint, it does the fuel and everything properly. As ever, they know how to make a good product for a simulator, the ToLiss. That's just great. So there we go. We're suddenly a lot closer. Got 240 miles until our descent. If I put in KIAH, yeah, that should be good. That's helped a bit. Uber Eats 320 Towers, says Hayden. Yeah, that would be a good idea. But I have some pasta. It won't take me long. I think it's quite quick cooking. Whataburger for Texas chain of burger places, says Lauren V. Yeah, sounds good. Does sound good. Yeah, but good idea, Orlando. Thanks for that. Bougie says, is that call from ATC suggesting you divert to a closer airport and nearer to a McDonald's? Could be indeed. Chick Point would like a break. Would like the music. Yeah, maybe we'll do that in a second. The water grid thing, it just appears sometimes and doesn't others, so it's fixed itself. Yeah. Yeah, maybe we'll take a break. Ennis says, hi Captain. I once had a hard windshield warning just after takeoff around 300 feet or so, and instead of going full throttle I just monitored my airspeed and it was increasing. What should I have done? So, just after takeoff, a wind shear, it's a memory item, one of the few, but you're going to have to go to Toga and then follow the SRS effectively, and don't change the config. So yeah, just set it to full throttle. If you have flaps out, the airplane will automatically go to SRS mode, and then it will climb its way out of the out of the wind shear. There is a risk of it disconnecting on its own, in which case you just fly that yourself and follow the SRS. Ventrix, yeah, I'm pretty sad about that, definitely. VNAV works just great in this airplane. Brianna, see you next time. Thanks for coming along. Pleasure to see you here as well. See you next time. Powdered sugar, I don't think I have that either. Running low. Yeah, Pancake Day in the UK, for those of you who don't know, we eat pancakes on Tuesday. That's about as much as you probably need to know. And they're not pancakes like you'd expect. They're not typically American fluffy pancakes. They're sort of more like crepes. But we call them pancakes. Yeah, well, I know indeed. If that works in real life, that'd be great. Virtue2 says only lemon juice and caster sugar on pancakes. Thank you. Yeah, that would be the traditional one. I don't even have the lemon juice. I don't have any of that. I may not manage. May save it for another day. I do love proper American style pancakes, though. One of my favourite things. Yeah, we did basically slew in the Egypt point. No one's going to know. Oh yeah, Andy says we don't eat them every Tuesday. No, that's a good point. Yeah, Tuesday isn't pancake day every week. It's just Shrove Tuesday. Is it the first Tuesday of March? I don't even know actually. I've always done it, but I don't know the real reason behind it. Checkpoint says I always get the discussion at home that pancakes are not dinner but dessert. Indeed, I'd agree with that. Lauren B says, are you real British? I wonder how many British people really know the meaning behind it though. Yeah, in the Netherlands they like crepes too, says Alex van der Paz. Yeah, I know, you know, nothing upsets me more than going to a cafe or somewhere that offers pancakes on the menu, and they go like, oh, pancakes with blueberries and cream and sugar, and you go, oh great, let's have that. And then it arrives and it's crepes, sort of just thin. If your pancake stack isn't sort of 10 centimeters high, then is it really a pancake stack? That's the problem. Bootie's asking the capacity. What it says, RTX 3080, which is 10 gigabytes, is it? I don't know. If you're self-isolating, pancakes will slide nice under the door, says David. There you go. Tomorrow's Ash Wednesday, indeed. Alex is going to have pancakes on Friday. Well, a lot of people in the UK will be having them today. I can guarantee that. There you go, Lauren B. Says that real pancakes are even thicker than American style and usually stuffed. Which would make sense because the name... Well, I don't know if it suggests a sweet treat or not. But... one of my favourite things in America to get is just a stack of pancakes, and it will inevitably come with salted butter, dusted sugar and syrup, maple syrup hopefully. That is so good. You don't need anything else. You can complicate it if you want to, you can have the different flavours, but I'm happy with that. And then some coffee. Brilliant. Yeah, I'm making myself hungry. I was hungry before this discussion. We've wandered right off into pancakes. Oh dear. Dear. Let's do another fuel check. Don't need that page even. 3.7 plus 6.7, so that becomes 9. Now that is interesting. So this doesn't add up anymore. That now reads 9. These 3.8 plus 6.6. So that's 9.8, 10.4. So we've lost a ton, which will be from our jumping. So the ToLiss correctly lowered this fuel and figure here, which is great, very clever. It didn't adjust the fuel used, which is fair enough. The real simulators that we use at work don't do that either. So, right, status page message. Interesting. Essential TR. That's Essential Transformer Rectifier. So that is going to be an electrical system. Not even shown here. So let me get this the right way around. It's the DC Essential. Yeah. So that makes sense. So we get AC power from the generators, and then it's converted by transformer rectifiers to DC electrical power. So alternating current, direct current. Some systems run direct, some run alternate. Hence you have these two different systems. For some reason, our essential transformer rectifier has failed. So what's the implication of that? I'm curious. I suppose if we lose DC bus 1, we'll lose the essential DC bus, but that can run from the batteries, so I suppose it would run off the batteries for a while. Yeah, that's probably not a great failure to have. Probably not great. It means we are reliant on this. If this fails, we'd be into... Well, we'd still have all the other essential, the AC essential though. Yeah, probably non-issue. Hence why it wasn't even an ECAM warning. Just down there. Yeah, it just appears. Very low level warning, that is. The Airbus is not really too concerned about it. I don't know when the new update is for the Phoenix A320, I'm afraid. Listerman says, disconnect the IDG, see what happens. Yeah, I debated turning off some things, and then I thought, it could cause us some headaches. Oh, better loading in. So Shrove Tuesday is the 3rd day before the traditional start of Lent. There you go. Shrove comes from the verb shrive, which means to confess your sins. There you go. Thanks, Ace Airstream. Chan says, if you like breakfast foods for any meal and you're in Houston, go to House of Pies. Open 24/7. You can go there to people watch too, all kinds of people. And later the time, the more interested in the crowd. Very good. I do like America's all-night diners and so on. Fly to Rotterdam Airport? Yeah, we could do Rotterdam at some point, Arjun. I don't see why not. Right, I am hungry, so I'm going to... What's our arrival time predicted at now? 21:01. So we saved ourselves 15 minutes, but we have got about an hour left of flying, which would make sense. How long to the top of descent? There's some things that you can use which I never do, but they're quite good. So if you press perf, you can get to distance. So this is quite a Boeing sort of style page. I never use it, but yeah, look, so we're going to descend at 2038 in 210 miles. So that is half an hour from now, and then half an hour to descend. It's nearly always half an hour to descend. So, yes, hello. Just complaining again. So, yeah, we've got about half an hour. So I'm going to go grab a snack so we can enjoy the music, and then we will be back very soon. So, enjoy. Hello. We are back. I hope you've all managed to get a cup of tea and something to eat. Just got to get through the descent, so not too long, and then we can go and have some proper food, some dinner. But yeah, I'm feeling more alert now. There we go. And the first officer is very upset because actually what's happened is she has food, but she doesn't like that food all the time, and she wants her special food. So she's going to complain until I provide that. But you'll just have to wait until I have mine. Just have to wait. Disaster, eh? It's a crisis, obviously. But yeah, great. Not sure if you can hear me outside, so I'll jump inside. I'm enjoying that music. It is great music. I do like it a lot. So House of Pies is the place to go in Houston. Having to maneuver the cat. No, don't do that. Oh. Incredibly agitated. Right, what were we saying? We're talking about pancakes. We've done that. It says the FO tried to divert us to Cuba. Alex says the FO sounds so much like mine. There you go. Yeah. She does talk a lot. Just to settle the pancakes thing, pancakes are absolutely acceptable for breakfast. In fact, I would argue that is their most suitable purpose. The only other time, I don't think they work well as a dessert, put it that way. So that is that's the answer, I'm afraid. No room for anything else. That is the answer. Yes, pancakes are a breakfast food. Right. I mean, imagine having pancakes for dessert after eating a meal. It's too much. It's too much. Alex says no dinner food. No, sorry, that's the wrong answer. They're best for a weekend breakfast, which feels like a dessert. There you go, says R&B. Yeah. Good. Right. We need to start talking about the descent. Ewan says dessert pancakes are crepes with fruit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I could agree with that. Arjun says never too much pancakes. Right, we're going to Houston George Bush. There it is. Wow. Plenty of runways here. My goodness. So, what do we reckon? Let's have a look at the big picture. Where? Oh my goodness. Where are we likely to land? Let's bring that up properly so you can actually see it. So, Blue Game said A11. So let's find A11. A11. So we want North Ramp, Terminal A, over there. So we're going to park up here. Relator says landing RS 26 left and 27. Oh no, Yankee 26 right. There you go. 26 left. Here in the middle, 27 down here, and we could do the Yankee onto 26 right. So, what do people fancy? Are we going to go for the RNAV Yankee or the ILS 26 left? I'm going to do a poll. Sadly, it's only on YouTube. I know what the answer is already, I suspect. So if you're on YouTube, you can enter the poll now. It has surprised me sometimes. Crepe is a fruit. It's one of your 5 a day. Says jet back away. Yeah, that is a good way to look at it. Yeah, so all landing westerly. No problems there. It would be a visual anyway since America. Oh! Yeah. Hold on. Let me... Oh dear. See, YouTube isn't that clever. Is this a feature or a bug? Yes. Land, yes, no. Oh dear. Right. Oh, I knew what would happen there. Still, I'm proud of the ILS voters. I always like that. Thomas says, what are your thoughts on the win-win stick after a few months? It's very good. I really like it, and I'm using it routinely when flying the Airbus now in both Microsoft Flight Simulator and X-Plane. Yep. Chris says, why don't you show us your sidestepping skills? Gosh, yeah, it's something we don't see it very often in Europe. Also, really, it needs 2 pilots. That's me making excuses. Oh no, the RNAV's really pulled ahead there. Disaster. Chip points voting ILS for the short taxi. That'll be the ILS 26 left. Probably I've started a poll now. I'll leave it running for a little bit and then we'll decide. But I can't go against the poll, sadly. So there we go. What we need now is the arrival. We're coming in via Gilco. So RMB said that that's not acceptable. Drops us off at Gilco. Judging by that poll, we're going to end up on an RNAV. On 2 runway, the north runway was 26 right. Wonder why they're not using their RNS. Looks like it'll be the Yankee. Or RNAV GPS Zulu 26 right. There it is. I don't believe you can do RNAVs on the fly-by-wire at the moment. No. So that starts at Hootie or Grizzle or Zappo. This just leaves you on a vector. But it does work for 26 left and right. Expect vectors to find the approach course at or prior to Gilco. So I think we can leave that arrival, fly to Gilco, head north and intercept that RNAV. Weiss says, I approached Skiathos VOR and was after the final turn not really straight to the normal, but I could see the runway. Is this realistic and normal? It's so Skiathos, yes, that's realistic what happens. VORs will never line you up perfectly with the runway. And the reason is, let's find a chart. So an ILS centerline, the localizer is actually, let's say we're landing on 26, well we are landing on 26 right. If we were using an ILS, which we're not today, but if we were, you'd approach straight in like this and land, and you'd use a localizer which is actually on the other end of the runway. The localizer transmitter is here. That way it can provide guidance for the whole landing. Now that means it's in line with the runway, so you can fly straight towards it. The VOR can't be on the runway because it's big. It's quite a big sort of, it's like a building. It's small for a building, but it's this big structure, so it can't be on the runway. It could be off the end of the runway, but it never is because that's where the lights are, and it would block out some lights and so on. So it's usually off to the side of the runway, like somewhere like here, or maybe down here, or even somewhere over here. It could be off the airport, it could be out here or down here. So Skiathos is actually on a different island. But yeah, so it's never on the runway, so you can't line up with it perfectly. So there's no approach. So let's say the VOR was in the middle here, just here. There is no approach that would work where we could fly towards that and line up with the runway directly. So what happens is the approach will fly you towards the VOR, and then you'll reach your minima, the lowest point you can go to, and then you should be able to see the runway and head over to the centre line. I have not tried the Flight Vector 320, I'm afraid, Yuho. Sorry. Right, well the poll's over then. The best part of 70 of you reckon RNAV. That's that. There we go, RNAV's definitely won. Angel Rodriguez, good to see you. It has been a long while. Hope you're doing very well. Working a lot. Yeah, everyone's been a bit busier than when we used to do this last year and the year before. But that's got to be a good thing. RNAV it is. So we're doing the RNAV 26 right. We're going to go towards Gilco, then expect vectors up. And here's the VOR, for example. Yeah. And then we're going to fly the RNAV via Zappo, Newly, Raids, Chubbs. Oh well. And to 26 right. Interesting arrival. So these aren't approach points. These are just, yeah, there's the initial approach fix. Initial fix is Raids from 4,000 feet. The approach starts at OL from 2,000 feet. Adam would like to see Gibraltar. Okie doke. Thanks very much. Thanks, Wolf Gaming, for the subscription. Wolf Gaming says, Blue Games told me to stop by and say hello. So hello, how are you? I'm very good. Good to see you, Wolf Games. Thanks for coming along. I hope you're doing very well. Yeah, Blue Games popped in earlier. Very kind. Yeah, so, oh well. Oh, what are you doing? Sorry, the cat is not content. Right, oh well, 2,000 feet. And then we're going to descend 3 degrees. I don't like this chart format. 3 degrees is quite important and they just hide it down here, but there it is anyway. Down we go. Note 3, if you see the numbers like this, it says LNAV only. That would put the... yeah, that would change... what's the V? They are confusing things here with this channel stuff. So we don't have WAS, or I've never used WAS, so I can't comment on it, I'm afraid. But 2,000 feet, 3 degrees, it's going to be about a 6-mile final then, isn't it? Yeah, look at that, 5.8 miles to the runway. Touchdown is about 100 feet elevation, so that's all pretty normal. Onto a huge, great runway. How long is 26 right? In the region of 2,700 meters. So flat fall, low auto brake, we've already agreed. LPV minima or LNAV VNAV minima. I'm going to do LNAV VNAV for reasons discussed. And I actually know what that means. So we're going to go with 496. It's definitely an MDA. No point putting the radio in for this one. Good. Let's check out the weather and we can load that in as well. Actually, no, before we do that, let's just do... so we've left in an arc for most of the flight, but now I'm going to go to flight plan. I'm going to bring it up, go to plan, zoom in, and then we'll just scroll through, get an idea of, is this what we want to do? So there's... no, we got the wrong runway, haven't we? I'm busy talking about it, didn't actually bother to put it in. This is not looking very professional. Not unless it's right, we said. Oh no. Zulu. And we've got the Gilco arrival. It's got these different transitions. But no, we're going to leave it as it is. That's already the agreed plan. It won't do that because we're already on part of that. So let's do that and insert. And if we scroll through, there it is, raids and through those waypoints. And then there's the go round. Great. So where's Walder? Let's continue to Walder. Good. That's the route then. Descent point not reliable because of course there's a vector in there, so we have to judge our descent ourselves. So that's the flight plan done. RadNav, we don't need anything in here. The DME is based on just distance to the runway, so very easy. Radar is required. The uncompensated barrier nav systems LNAV not auth below -3 because as it gets colder, your altimeter becomes less reliable and you'll actually get lower than it's set up for. Hence, this compensation is required. MSFS A321, pretty similar to where we set off, so not too much terrain around. Pretty straightforward. Good progress. So, as discussed then, we need to know our distance to the runway, so we'll put KIAH, and it's runway 26 right. In it goes. Perf. All as it is. Probably got a ridiculous descent speed, so I don't know why it does that. Let's do 7.9, which is what we're doing now, and then let's convert to 320 knots. Good. And next is the weather. Vucci too, thank you so much for a £20 super chat, really appreciate it. Vucci says, just like old times, great stream, thank you. You've certainly earned yourself. I really appreciate it, Vucci. That's incredibly kind. Thank you for supporting the channel so much, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. It has been a... yeah, it's been a while since it's been in the ToLiss. I was slightly shocked at how long it had been, so I was very pleased to jump back in. But that's very kind of you. Thanks so much for your donation and supporting the channel, Vuti. Right, let's grab the weather. Airports. So, it's 21 degrees. Lovely and warm. 3024, big high pressure. Wind. Variable 4. I'm just going to put in across at 4. Doesn't really matter. And we need the go around altitudes. So if we do go around 600 feet, then a right turn to 3000 to Rector Pebby. Pretty easy. 3000 is in. Finally, fuel prediction. All looking good. We've got an extra 1.2 tons. Secondary. That is a point actually. How are we doing for fuel? Because the wind is worse than we expected. So we reckon 4.4. So it's, yeah. that shows that the SimBrief fuel planning was more accurate than the simulator one. But yeah, secondary we can just copy over. Good. If we thought there was a risk of another runway change, i.e. if we were on VATSIM, then I could set up the other runway in there if we needed to. Thank you again to Booty for your very kind donation. Really appreciate it. Jun says, yeah, my AC is on right now in Houston. Friggin' warm. Yeah. Yeah, very nice. Chris says, weather is great here in Houston. I didn't really have so many Houston viewers. Yeah. How funny. How funny. Right. Wolf says, I donated $350 US. It is not from yet. Well, that's unbelievably generous. Thank you so much, Wolf Gaming. I mean, and I don't know if maybe the system will not accept it straight away if it's that large. So maybe that's why it might not go through. But certainly, we'll wait a minute and see what happens. But thank you so much for the thought, even if it doesn't work. But yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah, we'll just wait and see what goes on with it. No, Adam, in the UK we are still in just drizzle, 10 degrees. Yeah. Angel says today 21 degrees is almost considered cold in South Florida. Very good. Yeah. No, very jealous. Wolf says, I support small streamer content creators. I'm a small content creator myself. Let the small people become popular. Thank you very much, Wolf Gaming. Well, we really appreciate it and good to have you here. And there you go. So Wolf Gaming obviously streaming as well. So excellent to have you here. And I'm sure people will be checking out your channel to take a look. What sort of things do you normally stream, Wolf Gaming? And yeah, I'll keep an eye on Streamlabs. But still, very generous of you. Thank you so much. Apologies for that, just sorting something out. Yeah, so we are coming up to the top of the descent. We've briefed, we've set up the box, and soon we'll be starting down. So I think we're in a good place. In terms of the arrival, oh well, being the descent point, but we can use final lap in this one. And actually, I believe it's going to be FLS. Where was that written though? Ooh, so I did a video on FLS, but that's literally the only time I've seen it. I have not seen it in real life. We're not in the NEO, so maybe it's not there. So yeah, we'll just use final lap. We'll just arm approach. Yeah, only on the NEO. Thanks very much, Lauren B. Lauren B's always got the technical knowledge I'm looking for. Yeah, good. So that makes it easy. So yeah, we'll configure the airplane. 6 miles out, I want to be gear down, flap 2. Oh, sorry, flap 2, below 160 knots, gear down once we're starting down. 3 degrees is nice and straightforward. The B says, what do pilots do during cruise in real flights? Yeah, all sorts of things. You'd be amazed how quickly the time can go if you chat, you eat, because it's the only chance you get to eat. You don't really get a chance on the ground or during turnaround, so always eating at your seat, which is why having a tray table in the Airbus is so valuable. I would really miss it if I didn't have it, certainly. Sometimes on really long flights, a little bit of light reading, but usually a magazine or something like that, maybe just an article or two. But somebody is always flying the airplane, in the sense that you're just looking at these, glancing back to these all the time, especially this one. No excuse, because you could hit some air and increase, your speed could increase, and you might not even have any turbulence. You've got to be watching it. Arjun just realised that they can order pancakes via Uber, so pancakes are on their way. It's all your fault, dear. Yeah, right, Arjun, you've just given me a great idea for after dinner. Maybe I'll be ordering some takeaway pancakes. Problem is, there's nowhere. I don't know. I'll have to try. Maybe I'll try a local place and see if anyone does really good fluffy American style pancakes. Razlan Music, good to see you. Razlan says, what do you know? I made it back in time for landing. Sad to have missed takeoff, but at least have something to watch later too. Yeah, you've got a full hour of us not taking off, and then you've got to take off. So excellent. Thanks for joining us. Wolf says, I stream flight sims. Would you like to be on my podcast soon? So I haven't done any podcasts. No, it's not true. I did one. But I have... it's very unusual for me to appear on any other channel because of reasons relating to work. So, yeah, that's... that could be tricky. I say reasons relating to work. It's to do with what we discussed earlier. So it's unlikely, I'm afraid, Wolf Gaming. It's unlikely for a whole host of reasons. I don't think the CEO does have FLS for G2. I think we need to descend, though, because we are now sailing through our top descent. It is 88 miles to go, so best part of 90. We do have a good headwind, but the problem is once we descend, we're going to lose some of that. So let's do our classic down to 10. And I'm going to ignore that arrow. I don't think it's good enough. I think we need to be lower. Thrust out open descent, and we'll go back to constraints, of course. And down we go. Always a great feeling when those engines wind back. It's like, yes, so it begins. The arrival, finally. Ed says, I go away for 45 minutes just talking about pancakes. Yeah, it's just come back up. I promise we weren't talking about it the whole time, but... I never really thought of Houston as being so close to the coast. Just going to check that status again. Yeah, it's still just the essential. Other things important for non-precision. GPS primary accuracy high. Very important. So we've still got very good accuracy. No downgrades on the navigation systems of the airplane. So let's head ourselves to Chubbs. I cannot resist doing that. Chubbs. Good, off we go. And now I'm expecting it to think we're high, which we are, about 800 feet high. So we weren't too far off the mark with our descent. The only thing to note is, as well, with that, so that descent was all wrong because of that vector. The airplane didn't know how long the arrival was going to be. So that's why you need to watch it yourself, otherwise you can get yourself unstuck. The other thing here is, although we're at, you might think, well, 1800 feet high, that's not too bad, especially this far out. And it isn't, it's totally fine. But normally for 1800 feet, I would just speed up the airplane. And then that would cause more drag. Sadly, that won't work here because, of course, our descent speed at the Cossack 60 was so high already, 7.9 and 320 knots, that we're not going to have much extra room. So we may have to use the speed brakes of shame. I don't like that phrase, speed brakes of shame. Some people will refer to them as that, but to me, if you have to use them, you have to use them. That's what they're there for. The perfect descent, the most perfect fuel-efficient descent, is 1 foot away from being too high and needing the speed brakes. That's the way I see it. So, you could not use the speed brakes and be far more inefficient than somebody who uses them a little bit if they need to. Plus, solving it quickly and earlier is obviously the preferred option. Matthew Presley says, have we had the descend via discussion yet? Matthew, I'm sad to say we're not on that sim today. I've had too many issues. So we are making it up as we go, slightly negating the difficulty of me trying to fly in America. But yeah. But thanks for joining us. Matthew Presley, our resident American pilot. We have a lot of Americans in the chat. I'm really, really pleased. And again, surprised how many are in Houston. Arjun's very kindly donated 20 euros. Really appreciate it, Arjun. Arjun says, have those pancakes on me, mate. That's really very kind. Thank you so much. Well, I will now. That's definitely happening. I'm going to have some pasta. It'll be quite late, but that's fine. And yeah, we'll have to order some. David says, is it called Chaz because of all the pancakes? Thanks so much, Arjun. Really very kind of you. Enjoy yours. And yeah, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Very, very kind. Okay, we're descending. Now I'm just going to go into manage descent. Let the airplane resolve that for me. We do need to transition to QNH though. Which we agreed was 3024. Oh, no, wrong way. There we go. So, yeah, okay, we've got 20 knots to play with, so we might be alright here. We might make up that altitude, yeah, 1,300 feet. Yeah, really appreciate it again, Arjun, 20 euros. Very kind of you. And thank you again to Booty earlier. Matthew says, I plan on using speed brakes, especially when trying to fly as quick as possible, aka late. The idea that speed brakes are mistakes is absurd. Yeah. They are a tool. They are part of the airplane. And again, if you're aiming for a completely thrust idle descent, you're almost certainly going to need them. But you shouldn't be aiming for that, to be honest. You can get pretty close. Right, apologies again. First officer has now left. There we go. Sadly, default scenery. Doesn't look too bad, but yeah. I do love the livery. Back to daylight. So we're heading straight into Chubbs. Chubbs would be the last point we can go direct to. We need to be there at 3,000 feet. MSA is slightly below that, but we are visual, so we'll go down. I'm happy to go down to 3,000. We've ended up a bit high, 14,000 feet. We've lost that headwind. That's not going to have helped the situation. Let's get rid of these needles. They're just confusing things now. I'll just leave number 1 on. But it's pointing behind us anyway. Right, so how many miles to go? We know that the flight plan is accurate because it can't get any shorter, so 44 miles. We need 30, 40. Yeah, we need about 50 miles, so we are high. So at this point, I would ask air traffic if we can keep high speed, and then I'd pull the speed, and instead of using speed brakes, we'll just carry on down at 330. I don't know what America's like. I don't know whether they're likely to let you do that. In Europe, it's very common. You can often just ask, and unless they have traffic ahead of you, they'll let you just keep the speed up. Listerman says, I still miss the trade table so much in the 321. Yeah, it is absolutely required. Not sure, Sean. There could be a few reasons the approach didn't activate automatically. It could just be you hadn't got close enough or followed the navigation yet, but it could have just been a bug as well. No LS, sorry, we're doing a non-precision approach. Glad you like it, Booty. Yeah, I like it too. Wired Womble's hard work. Lauren B says, high speed below 10k is approved as long as it won't interfere with traffic. It's basically just the please ask first. Yeah, that's very similar to Europe then. So there we go. We're through 10,000 feet. We're almost making up our profile. So this tells me we're a little bit high. So we're going faster, which means with thrust idle and a higher airspeed, the airplane has to descend quicker. It isn't very intuitive, but it just means there's more drag on the airplane. So this is why this works for us. By the way, after landing, get rid of that. Is there any specific exit we want? Probably go for the first. First or second would work fine, actually. Second probably be the best. So we're screaming in, but we do have to balance this with being too close and too fast. So on the other hand, we've only got 30 miles to go with a lot of speed to lose, and I wouldn't want to hit a bird at these speeds. So now we're on profile, you'd think, well, I can just go back to the normal speeds, but sadly that won't work, because if I do that, the airplane will have to nose up to try and lose the speed, and then we'll get high again. So this is where we'd use the speed brakes. Reed says, often they want you to keep your speed up for spacing anyway. There you go. Graham says, hi Captain, does the autopilot disconnect sound is working? In the ToLiss it certainly is. Let's listen. Interesting thing to note is that you'll have seen that flash, I didn't click on it, the message has gone and it beeped. I only pressed the button once. So in the Airbus, unlike some airplanes, if you use the actual button, now if I use this button up here, it continues. It's a different warning. Great piece of detail by the ToLiss team. Let's click it back in. Whereas if we disconnect it using the red button, it's just the 3. The idea is you're intentionally disconnecting using this button, whereas if it's disconnected by another means, it could have been an accident, like instead of meaning to press it, you were trying to press auto thrust or something else. But yeah, anyway, AP1 trivia for you. The piece says FA has joined the chat. We're slowing down, we promise. So this is getting silly now. We are 22 miles, but we're still doing over 300 knots, and we're getting too low. So I'm going to use the speed brakes. It's just not sensible otherwise, I don't think. Full speed brake available in the 21, so we get a lot of drag out of it. Very useful tool. Yes, list them in. Exactly. The 250 is mainly for air traffic. Look at that speed reduction, and we're still descending at 1300 feet per minute. It reduces effectiveness as you get slower, but still, that's pretty good. Easier to use them. Because they work so well at high speed, they're much more effective in the high speed part of the descent. By the time you're on final approach, they are much less effective. There you go, the approach phase is now activated on its own. I can tell because I can see the speed reducing back to green dot. Right, time for the approach checklist. Briefing confirmed, decam status is checked. Still just got that transform essential TR. Seatbelts, oh yeah, good one. They need to come on. We went through 10,000 feet. There we go, lights are on. Barra ref is set. MDADH set 496. Engine mode selector is just on norm. Right, let's go to flap 1. Status reappears. That's normal. If you have anything on the status page, it will reappear at this point when you put up flap 1, just to double check you know what's going on. That's what we expected. That's gone. So we're on profile, just a little bit fast. Distance to run, just 13 miles, 220 knots. So we're about okay, but we need to get that drag out now because we're trying to descend as well as fly this. Is there a level segment expected? Well, not really, because we've got to get from 3 down to 2 by oval. 4,000 feet should be about 12 miles to run, which it is. So yeah, no, we need to get flap 2 out now. So flaps to 2. Ed, thank you so much for £3.21. I really appreciate it. I see what you did there. Sorry for mentioning pancakes. Enjoy someone else. Thank you very much, Ed. Really, really appreciate it. Very kind. Thanks for supporting the channel as always. And indeed, I will be enjoying some pancakes later today. It's an absolute must, it seems. Right. The airplane is going to automatically line up. Once OL is the 2-way point, I'm going to arm the final approach. You can see with flap 2 out, the drag is pretty intense. Now, it should be targeting 146, so I'm a little surprised to see the speed increasing like that. There's speed out star. I suppose we weren't in open descent. So I'm going to now put 2 in the window because that's the next altitude we can go down to. I'm going to arm, and there it is, final lap. Speed's below 200 knots. That's good. Helped by the fact that in this airplane we can get the flap 2 out at quite a high speed of 215. So 190 knots, distance to go, 9 miles. I can put the progress page up and get my distance there. So I want to be 180 by 8. So we're actually running fast here. We're struggling to get the airplane to slow down. Ed says, I feel responsible for mentioning pancakes 10 minutes into the stream. Indeed, it did have quite an impact. But I suppose it's certainly appropriate. There's a Radout is alive, so that is going to mean we just need to make sure that's sensible, which it is. They're both roughly matching up. Going altitude was, I believe it was 3. Yeah, it was. Right, how are we doing then? 180. No, it's just not working, so gear down. There it goes. That's going to be our real drag. Now we'll start to get things under control. Put the lights on. The speed brakes. Flaps to 3. Cabin needs a ding dong. And now, the last stage of flap to come out. We don't need it just yet. We're still at 1,500 feet. So I sometimes delay flap full. Flap 3 is very efficient. You can see, look at that, engines are back at sort of 30%. Yeah, they'll probably get to like 50. Maybe a bit less, 45. The only problem is you don't want to forget about it. 52, harder than I thought. I suppose we're heavy and we're in a 321. Right, flap full then. And now, although it goes a bit slower, they'll then have to spool up. More drag out there. Excuses are 321 NEO. We have 321 old. We haven't flown that for a long time. That's the only excuse I've got. Landing checklist, cabin is secured. Auto thrusters in speed. Go around altitude 3,000 feet set. Eco memo landing. No blue. We're ready for landing. Aiming for first or second exit. Yeah, this is just default X-plane. Yeah. It's got some cars down there. Right. I'm going to adjust my seating. I don't know. Well, this is the problem of the non-precision approach. I'm surprised it's taken us so far left. Normally, RNAVs are lined up with the runway pretty perfectly because they aren't based on a VOR. They can be. Anyway, we're about to go through the minima. Amazing how low you can go with a non-precision. So this should guide us all the way to the runway pretty much. I shouldn't need to turn off the flight directors. Okay, they haven't modelled that. Anyway, there's the autopilot off, flight directors off, and bird on. And we'll just head over to the runway. Nice and gently. Yeah, that's a little bit... there seems to be a bug where it brings you out a little bit left. I remember that from the FLS video.
50, 40, 30,
oh.
20, retard, 10.
Idling nose.
5.
Touchdown. Oh, a little bit of a skip. Yeah, that comes from a destabilised final approach there. And we got spoilers, reverse green, decel. We'll go for the next one. Not the longest runway in the world. Yeah, I wonder why it's beeping like that. Very odd. Low's working out nicely for this exit, which is sort of the one we want. 70 knots. Reverses to idle. Oh, no, we're actually on forward idle. Not a problem. And we'll go. Ah, the brakes are working. Are they? No, brakes are still not working. Turn it off ourselves. And there we go. Very warm welcome to Houston, where it is a lovely 24 degrees. I hope you've all enjoyed the flight. Yeah, interesting. That is not what a normal RNAV. I don't think the chart suggested it should be out of line like that either. So that seems to be a bit of a theme. So I'm gonna have to see what happens next time. Yeah, that's not where it usually brings you out, because on an RNAV like that these days, you can actually have it fly all. I mean, if you're down to 400 feet, to have to do that sort of maneuver at the end there, it's just not ideal. It just destabilizes you a bit. To still be sort of coming over the threshold, not quite in line, is not really normal. But there we go. So we made it down, and we'll go and look at the replay. Obviously, definitely a little bit of a skip there. Nothing too untoward, but it can happen. So parking now is our concern. We are going to vacate and then just follow the taxiways. They look quite intuitive for now. Left and down via Northeast Bridge. Good. Let's disarm the speed brakes. Flaps up. And we're going to do single engine taxi. There is a thing these days called, thanks Joe Clark for the subscription, called, well, depending on the name, but we're going to set, well, it's one name for it. We're going to taxi without the APU running. If you've had your airplane modified, you don't need the APU. It does shed some power in the galley, and it's because of, it's to do with the fire systems, fire protection systems. There it is again. I don't know what that thing is. Yes, the markers. They aren't so intrusive. I suppose I never had that turned on in the real aircraft. Thanks, Richard, too. Glad you enjoyed it. I will do my best to get VATSIM sorted. Actually, yeah, single engine taxi is going to be our best bet here to keep the speed under control. Now, you can't just turn it straight off when you vacate the runway. The reason is you've got to let the engine cool down a bit. And you might think, well, you know, we didn't use high thrust like a takeoff, but we were using 50 to 60% of thrust on approach. So that's actually quite high. That's quite a lot of fuel and quite a lot of noise. Now, that's the safest way to fly an approach in an airplane. That's why we do it. But nevertheless, it's something to consider when you shut them down. But we've probably had our 3 minutes by now. So I'm going to get the airplane straight on here, and then we can shut it down. Ethan says, have you got something in the microwave? Indeed. No, it does sound like it. Right, straight here, straight across the runway, and then we'll go left. Good. So, we're going to again go to engine 1, so engine 2 can go off. You can turn the lights off already. And we're going to turn on the yellow electric pump, just like we had for the way out. So the lights are gone. Radar's off, didn't need it all flight. Transponder can go back to auto. There will be a replay coming up. Spliff Jam, good to see you. Laura V says, Spirit shuts down engines on stand without starting the APU for taxi in. Wouldn't be surprised if Frontier does the same. Oh, so they park up and then they just wait for somebody to turn the ground power on, do they? I've never heard of that. I've never seen it. If you have a broken APU, that's what you have to do. You have to park on the runway, on the stand. Then with an engine running, somebody will come and plug in the ground power to the nose here. But that's something that only a pure Airbus airline could do, because there are airplanes where the ground power connections are closer to the engines, so you wouldn't want that. But if you only operate the Airbus, I suppose you could make it a procedure. Yeah, if you've landed, we landed it very heavy there, and I used the brake, so probably not quite this quick, but yeah, 360, not unreasonable for that sort of weight, but I think it would typically take a bit longer. Right, we're over the runway, strobe lights off. So we'll have to make sure, the trick here is do not forget to start up the APU as you park. So we don't need it now. Now, let me be clear, that's actually a modification. So an airplane of this age would need, probably would need the APU running unless it had been modified by your airline. You're going to have to use a little bit of reverse anyway. Yeah, probably would. But if you do taxi in like this without the APU, which is more common these days, you would need to remember to turn it on before you park. In Europe, it's unusual. The ground crew will not approach the airplane with an engine running. Fantastic. I just love the livery. So we're aiming for A11. Blue Games' stand. Somebody says, cut engine 2 and have someone run up and plug in. Saves the maintenance. Well, it would save one cycle of the APU and it would save a little bit of fuel. But I'm still surprised because obviously the risk of having that is that having crews routinely approach an airplane that has an engine running is obviously a risk for a reason. But on the Airbus, because it's right at the front, it's not too much of an issue. Still quite unnerving for us though, because we can't see that. So if ground crew just go under here while the engines are still running, we have to hope that they realise. Because remember, they wear ear defenders and there's lots of other airplanes driving around, so they might not realise that your engines are running. Right, we've got to find our stand. It's on the inside. I think it's the other side here. Second one in. Okay. So we're going just over here. Thanks for subscribing, Fabio T. Lauren V says, if it's their airline's SOP, they probably know the engine is running. Yeah, thing is, the ground crew probably aren't employed by the airline. So those ground crew will probably then go and service another airlines. I think. I don't know. Spirit and Frontier may use their own. But typically, that's the case. Fabio is in San Diego, California. Hello to you. Thanks for joining us. Right, I'm going to start it now. And yeah, like I say, if it's routine, then I'm sure the airlines have done a risk assessment on it and so on. But yeah, certainly not what we're used to in Europe. Okay. There's our 15, so 11 next door. Let's go to those nose lights. JetBlue and American use their own ground crew, says Noah. There you go. I'm still having to use reverse here. I suspect a sim reload would have solved it. But we had enough trouble with X-Pilot. Now this is going to be a trick. Because idle reverse actually produces a little bit of back thrust. Just a bit. And yeah, like I say, this is not a realistic situation. You wouldn't be trying to park on sand without any brakes. So let's see if we can do this. Parking brake set. Yes, we made it onto the line. We're in the white line. That'll do. APU is now available. We don't need that yellow electric pump. Let's shut down the engine. That would have helped the brakes cool. N1 below 10%-ish. Beacon off. Everyone can walk around. Excellent. Well, thank you all for joining us. And a very warm welcome to Houston. Yeah, fantastic. I'm very jealous. Wish I was there now. Arriving in the nice sunny day. So what we're going to do is take a look at the replay and see how that went. Lauren V says, it could depend. Houston is NKS based, so probably have their own ground crew. Yeah. In Europe, your ground crew often could be from different airline. Yeah, agreed. Dab said, Wired Womble put a nice little detail there. Just customizing it a bit for us. Casually reversing onto stand. Indeed we are. Right, let's jump into the replay. Yeah. I mean, let's wind it back. Are the FMA? Oh, look at that. Even the FMAs work. So this is what happened earlier. For those of you joining us now, this is a replay. So yeah, it just brought us in at an angle. And we can go down to 496, which was there. it immediately drops the autopilot.
300.
Which I think it should have come with a reminder. Turned off the flight directors. So, to be fair, because I had to do the flight directors myself,
300. 300.
realistically, you don't autopilot off, flight directors off, and the pilot flying would already be turning here. So there's a few seconds delay while I turn off those things. So, and I didn't turn until 200 feet. So that probably exacerbated the issue here. Yeah. So next time I'd just disconnect earlier. Nothing unsafe. I wouldn't say there was a problem with what we did there.
50. 40.
Anyway, we've seen that. So it's sinking quite a lot. Oh, we were quite a high pitch, 4 degrees. Just settled on. Oh, it didn't skip. Just regained a bit of lift just for a second. Oh, yeah, just about skipped. You could feel it. That's fine, just sort of settling on. A bit of a wobble. That wobble partly caused by my terrible rudder setup, but still. Excellent. So, let's do... I do like... my favourite view. There we go. Little bits of wing. So you can see how from the outside you can barely see it. So this is something that always surprises me with airliners. They look so stable from the outside normally. So that felt like, to me, looking from the cockpit, that was an unusual sort of amount of turning to have to do on final. And yet, unless you're looking closely, you can't really tell from the outside. We know it's there, and the way the camera tracks it. I love the shadows on the trees. That's good. But yeah, it's just a bit of a gentle wing wobble, and that shows you when there was that windy storm in the UK recently. You might remember there was all that footage, and you could see the airplanes rocking around, and that shows you how that must have been so much more impressive on board. Because if you can see an airplane moving from the outside, then you can guarantee they can feel it on the inside. Because it always feels a lot worse, because you can hardly tell. Took me a while to get the nose wheel down, I felt, as well. Let's see what happened there. So into the flare, nose a bit high up, bit of a skip, but that's okay. Yeah, got it to there. Nah, take that back, that seems fine. Yeah, this is the plane spotter's dream. Imagine being able to stand here. So what's a good wing view? I think we'll have the full-on sharklet view. So somewhere here, I reckon, will work, just before we put flat foot out. Okay, so what I'm going to say now is, Ed, very much appreciated. Glad you enjoyed it. I would enjoy the pancakes. Thank you so much for your kind donation. Thank you to everyone who's very, very generously donated. I really appreciate it, and thanks for coming along. Thank you to all of you watching on Twitch and YouTube. Thanks, of course, to the moderators for working so hard on both of those formats to look after us. And thank you for everyone who's liked. Do please leave a like on the way out on YouTube if you are watching there. It makes a big difference to the channel. And of course, we will soon be back with more videos. There is a video on the channel about fuel planning. It's, I hope, interesting, and it's not something I've seen discussed before, so I thought it might be quite a good one to do. So do check that out, where I talk about just some rough guides on how to sort of where those fuel figures come from and why we have them there and what we might take extra for. But yeah, so thank you for watching along. Thank you for chatting along if you have been, and of course for those donations, and to the moderators. We'll see you all again very soon. Do keep safe and well. Bye-bye.